Chapter 1. The Underground Assassin Guild. Gu Changge traverses a fantastical realm, inheriting an underground assassin guild and successfully binding to a Zerg enhancement system. He trains his pets and becomes a formidable assassin, upgrading his skills and establishing a Zerg assassination legion. With this force, he sweeps through the martial arts world, executing his enemies unseen. Open the door, you quack doctors. The relentless pounding reverberated through the wooden door. Within the clinic, Gu Changge was jolted awake, bewildered as he surveyed the unfamiliar environment steeped in the scent of herbs. Acupuncture needles, scalpels, and various medical supplies came into view. What is happening? With a furrowed brow, Gu Changge swiftly rose from his bed. At that moment, an unfamiliar memory surged into his mind, inducing a splitting headache. The Daong Dynasty, Qingzhou City, the Destiny Medical Hall. Gu Changge inhaled sharply, finally grasping his current predicament. He had traversed from Earth in the 21st century to a world thriving on martial arts. The body he now occupied bore an intricate identity. On the surface, a healer dedicated to saving lives, yet clandestinely recruiting assassins to engage in the trade of murder for hire. In essence, this medical hall was nothing less than an underground assassin guild. However, the original owner had taken on tasks of excessive difficulty recently, compounded by a crackdown from the authorities, resulting in a near-total loss of the guild's assassins. While business had nearly come to a halt, the income from the clinic managed to sustain a semblance of livelihood. Yet, just half a month prior, a rival businessman named Zhu had opened a competing clinic, intentionally targeting the original owner, sending trouble his way incessantly, causing a significant drop in revenue. The original owner had operated the clinic to conceal his true identity, choosing to endure the provocations. Consequently, his family perceived him as a pushover, emboldening their audacity. Enough. If this continues, we shall be forced to shut down. Gu Changge frowned, dissenting against the original owner's passive approach. While discretion and restraint have their merits, allowing others to trample upon one's dignity was intolerable. Open the door, or I shall demolish this wretched establishment. The shouts from outside persisted, the door trembling under the violent assault, filling the air with cacophony. By heavens, how unbearable! Suppressing his frustration, Gu Changge strode to the door and swung it open with force. There stood a bald man with a bushy beard, named Li Zhuang, who had visited the clinic days prior for treatment of a leg injury. What should have been a mere scrape had not healed, and he now leaned upon a crutch. His motives evidently dubious. Ah, at last you dare to face me. Li Zhuang's eyes narrowed, a malicious grin spreading across his face. Gu Changge replied in a low tone, "What is it you desire? Speak plainly." Li Zhuang, upon hearing this, erupted loudly, "You charlatan! You've ruined my leg. Compensate me at once. Otherwise, I shall report you to the authorities for practicing medicine and defrauding the public. Come, everyone, witness how this unscrupulous clinic employs counterfeit medicine to deceive and harm." Li Zhuang's cries quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. How dare this clinic resort to such deceit? It is utterly devoid of conscience. Indeed, it would be wiser to seek treatment at the neighboring Yuantang. No way, the young man here treated my fractured right hand and charged a modest fee. Listening to the mixed murmurs around him, Gu Changge's fury intensified. He was now certain that this fellow was a troublemaker sent to tarnish his clinic's reputation. "Young man, if you wish to settle this matter peacefully, it is not impossible." Li Zhuang threatened with a false smile. "Compensate me for my medical expenses due to the leg injury, and we shall consider this settled." "Oh, name your price." The coldness in Gu Changge's gaze intensified. Encouraged by the response, Li Zhuang felt a swell of confidence. A small-time physician lacking strength and connections dared to compete with boss Zhu's Yuantang. How reckless. And now, am I not in complete control? 3,000 taels of silver. Not a single coin less. Li Zhuang's eyes gleamed with mockery as he fixed his gaze on Gu Changge, convinced of his victory. How about 3,000, minus a little? Gu Changge raised his right hand, fingers slightly splayed. 500. Li Zhuang's eyes lit up. Fine, it's a deal. Crack. Gu Changge swiftly delivered a resounding slap. Li Zhuang stumbled back, his face ablaze with a sharp sting. "You bastard, how dare you strike me?" Before he could finish, another 2 slaps followed. Li Zhuang's head buzzed from the blows, his face swelling visibly, handprints clearly etched upon it. The onlookers stood in disbelief at this unexpected turn of events. The usually submissive physician had resorted to violence today. "You're asking for death." Li Zhuang, enraged, raised his cane, his legs now steadying. However, in the next instant, Gu Changge launched a kick with remarkable speed and precision. The kick landed squarely in Li Zhuang's groin, producing a sound reminiscent of cracking eggs. "Ah, my." Li Zhuang's face contorted in agony as he curled up on the ground, wailing like a slaughtered pig. "You claim I've ruined your leg? Then let me render it utterly useless and treat it anew." Gu Changge stepped on Li Zhuang's right leg, speaking coldly. The original owner possessed peak strength and could not possibly be subdued by a lowly thug like you. As his words fell, a powerful surge of energy erupted from Gu Changqing. Yuanqi. He is a martial artist. The crowd's pupils dilated in shock. The martial arts system of the Tsunyuan continent revolves around absorbing yuan qi to refine the physical body. The realm of martial arts is classified into several stages: condensing qi, acquired, innate, Taoist mortal, and yuan dan. Generally speaking, as long as one successfully cultivates yuan qi through condensing qi, they have already crossed the threshold of martial arts. With a suitable occupation, they can live without worry for the rest of their lives. This young man's yuan qi aura is remarkably profound, indicating that he is at least an acquired realm warrior. With such striking looks and youthful talent, how could he possibly resort to dubious medical practices for money? Indeed, that bald man must have intended to extort money. This time, he has met his match. The crowd gazed at Gu Changqing with astonished expressions, their opinions swiftly shifting. Young master, I was wrong. It was my lack of discernment that led me to attempt extortion. Please, spare me from having my legs broken, Li Zhuang stammered, trembling in fear. This was no weakling. He was undoubtedly a formidable character. Boss Zhu had truly dug his own grave. If apologies were effective, what need would there be for force? Gu Changqing's tone was calm, yet it carried an unsettling chill. A crack echoed as bones splintered, and Li Zhuang immediately quaked in agony, howling in despair. Gu Changqing kicked him aside and turned to enter the establishment. Such petty extortionists must be given a profound lesson. Otherwise, they would surely return to cause further trouble. As for Yuan Hall, as long as there was no complete rupture in relations, it would be wise to endure for the time being. After all, his assassin organization was now merely a hollow shell, and his strength did not permit reckless actions. Just as Gu Changqing stepped through the door, a mechanical voice suddenly resonated in his mind. Ding! System successfully liberated from the constraints of the heavenly path. Beginning binding process. Chapter 2. Creation of insectoid monsters. Ding! Insectoid editing system successfully bound. This system can extract the characteristics of all things to create monsters, assisting the host in achieving greatness. The unexpected electronic synthesized voice caused Gu Changqing to freeze momentarily, his eyes shimmering with excitement. As a bona fide transmigrator, how could he be unaware of the system? This was his golden finger. With a creak, he locked the door, executing the entire motion seamlessly. Once assured of his solitude, he began to meticulously explore the functionalities of the system. Insectoid editing system. Host. Gu Changqing strength. Peak acquired realm energy value. 0 pets. 0. Editing formula. Insectoid human blood material monster. Gu Changqing swiftly scanned the information on the panel in his mind, gaining a general understanding of its fundamental functionalities. Its purpose was straightforward. By gathering 3 specific materials from the formula, he could edit and create monsters. The energy value required for each operation could be converted by absorbing items containing spiritual energy or acquired through slaughter. However, what editing effects could a small insect possibly yield? Gu Changqing pondered briefly, his gaze sweeping across the shop. Upon spotting a small spider in the corner spinning its web, he immediately locked onto it. You shall do, he declared, advancing swiftly to seize the spider. With the Zerg materials at hand, the next step involved gathering the necessary components. He then opened a hidden compartment at the bottom of the medicine cabinet, revealing an array of lethal weapons, poison needles, daggers, and hidden projectiles. As an assassin organization, an abundance of deadly instruments was to be expected. Gu Changqing's gaze fell upon a sleek black dagger. Although it appeared diminutive, it was forged from abyssal iron, a material renowned for its resilience and imbued with a chilling venom, making its lethality formidable. If he could extract its characteristics to modify a spider, the transformation should be considerable. With this thought, Gu Changqing decisively pricked his fingertip, allowing a drop of blood to emerge. System, I wish to edit a monster. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than a notification chimed. Congratulations, host. You have gathered all necessary materials. Would you like to proceed with the synthesis? Yes. As soon as the words left his lips, the dagger, the blood, and the spider vanished in an instant. Immediately, a luminous panel materialized before him, displaying 3 slots surrounding a central synthesized button. Each slot already contained the requisite materials for the editing process. Ding. Detected that the dagger is made of Earth-tier abyssal iron. 100 energy points required. As this is your first operation, a complimentary editing opportunity is granted. Would you like to confirm this operation? Upon hearing the word complimentary, Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow. This system was rather accommodating. He promptly tapped the synthesis button and closely observed the changes on the panel. Amidst a flicker of light, the 3 materials within the slots fused seamlessly. Ding. Editing successful. Congratulations, host. You have created your first Zerg monster. Please name it. Shadow Spider. After completing the naming process, Gu Changqing noticed a sudden alteration in the panel's information. Shadow Spider Sequence, 001 level. Beginner Power Assessment. Chi Condensation Realm Attack Skill. Venomous Fangs Innate Ability. Immunity to Toxins. Ability to Switch Forms Advancement Enhancement requires 100 energy points. At the bottom of the panel, 2 illustrations were displayed. To the left was a black spider. Its exoskeleton glimmering with a metallic sheen, its limbs robust and powerful, with menacing fangs protruding. In stark contrast, the illustration on the right depicted a voluptuous humanoid creature. Its fingertips bore hook-shaped blades, and 6 slender spider legs sprouted from its back, presenting a form both enigmatic and alluring. The ability to switch forms within its innate capabilities was, in fact, the transformation into a humanoid monster. Gu Changqing surveyed the 2 monster illustrations with astonishment. Moreover, the shadow spider's curvaceous physique clearly indicated it was female. Impressive. Gu Changqing's eyes sparkled with admiration. He hadn't anticipated such a monumental transformation from a mere editing process. The formidable editing function surpassed all his expectations. Warm reminder. The quality of materials determines the upper limit and initial strength of the monsters. When the host creates a second monster, it is advisable to use higher-grade materials for editing. If the monster starts at a lower level, it can still be advanced and strengthened later by consuming energy. Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing nodded thoughtfully, as if grasping the operational rules. In other words, if a monster is inherently deficient, one can compensate with energy. This upgrade system is indeed quite reasonable. Suddenly, a series of knocks interrupted Gu Changqing's contemplation. The sound was deep and rhythmic, resembling a secret signal. After a moment's deliberation, he approached the door and asked warily, "Who is it?" "Dr. Gu, it's Changge, the one who came to see you last time." A hoarse male voice responded from outside. Upon hearing the name, Gu Changqing swiftly searched the original owner's memories. Changge was a middleman in the black market, facilitating connections between assassins and employers for profit. Many of the illicit jobs the original owner had previously accepted were brokered through this man. Gu Changqing opened the door to find a short, middle-aged man standing outside. Grinning at him, "I cannot treat your ailment," Gu Changqing stated flatly, with a hint of caution. "Dr. Gu, you are being modest. Only you can cure my affliction." Changge replied with an inscrutable smile, stepping directly into the clinic. Once inside, he discreetly scanned the room, ensuring there were no outsiders present, and his expression softened slightly. Gu Changqing's gaze darkened. "Stop with the pretense, speak plainly." Lowering his voice, Changge said, "I recently took on a job in the black market. Are you interested?" "Not interested," Gu Changqing replied without hesitation. It was prudent to exercise caution when dealing with individuals from the black market. One could never know what schemes lay beneath. "Please, don't be so hasty in your refusal," Changge insisted, fixing his gaze on Gu Changqing with a significant look. "Your assassin troupe has encountered some difficulties. This job presents a great opportunity for a turnaround. The reward is 10,000 taels of silver." At this, Gu Changqing's expression shifted slightly. Given the prices in the Daong dynasty, that amount was substantial. The income from the Assassins Guild was indeed lucrative. "You know, in our line of work as agents, collaboration and mutual benefit are paramount," Changge stated solemnly. "If you miss this opportunity, there will be little reason for us to continue our partnership." Unfazed, Gu Changqing asked cautiously, "What is the strength of the opponent?" "Chi Condensation Realm. However, he is accompanied by 8 thugs, one of whom is in the postnatal realm." Changge replied with a smile. "I apologize, but I can only disclose so much before the task is accepted." Gu Changqing fell silent. It was no wonder the reward was substantial. The presence of that postnatal thug justified the price. After all, the cultivation level of the assassination target was secondary. The key was to scrutinize the background and influence of the opponent. As the target of assassination is the emperor, even if the assassin's skills are lacking, their formidable backing renders the price beyond estimation. "What do you think?" Changge inquired, casting a steady gaze towards Gu Changqing, though his tone retained a calm demeanor, his eyes betraying a hint of impatience. Had it not been for the fact that the underground assassins of Changzhou City had only the Heavenly Fate Medical Hall as their stronghold, he would hardly regard such a lowly organization with any respect. However, Gu Changqing did not rush to respond, swiftly weighing the pros and cons in his mind. Although there were no assassins available at present, perhaps the abilities of the Shadow Spider could be put to the test. After all, the materials needed for later editing of monsters would undoubtedly incur significant costs. The current revenue of the medical hall was insufficient to sustain such expenses. Contemplating this, Gu Changqing reached a decision. "Very well, I shall accept this job." Changge immediately feigned a smile. "Boss Gu, you truly are quite decisive. Here is the information regarding the target. Please review it." As he spoke, he retrieved a piece of paper from his bosom and handed it to Gu Changqing. Your luck is quite favorable. The target's location is conveniently nearby. Nearby? Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow in surprise, then turned his attention to the contents of the paper. Chapter 3. Assassination Mission. This paper was evidently an assassination mission order. It contained detailed information about the target. The first thing that caught the eye being a portrait of a middle-aged man, with a round face, large ears, squinted eyes, and a black mole on his left cheek. He bore a distinctly mean expression. This rotund figure was none other than Boss Zhu of Yuantang. Gu Changqing scrutinized the portrait, a cold smirk forming within. Truly, fate had brought them together. This glutton had come to the medical hall early in the morning to cause trouble. And now he had delivered himself right to Gu Changqing's doorstep, providing an opportunity for a lucrative gain. It was indeed a double-edged sword. Gu Changqing's gaze sharpened as he quickly perused the details on the paper. Target: Zhu Dafu, age, 38, strength, condensed Qi realm identity, owner of Yuantang bodyguards, 8. Including one practitioner of the acquired realm location, Qingzhou City, Daong Dynasty reward, 10,000 taels of silver deadline, 7 days moreover. The information detailed some of Zhu Dafu's unsavory dealings. This unscrupulous merchant not only peddled counterfeit medicine, but also engaged in the trafficking of children, catering to the depraved desires of wealthy perverts. What a wretch! Gu Changqing's eyes turned cold. Eliminating such scum could indeed be seen as a service to the people. Boss Gu, since you have accepted the task, I must lay out the terms clearly. Chun Kuei's expression turned serious as he continued. According to the rules, failure to complete the task by the deadline will incur a penalty of triple the compensation. Gu Changqing couldn't help but cast a sidelong glance at him. This agent certainly had a keen sense for profit. Regardless of whether the task succeeded or failed, this shady job was bound to be a sure gain. Once the task is accomplished, I will personally come to settle the payment. Chun Kuei concluded, then turned and left the medical hall, internally hoping for Gu Changqing's failure. Thus, the potential for triple profits became even more enticing. Within the medical hall, a profound silence enveloped the room. Gu Changqing sat in contemplation, meticulously devising his forthcoming strategies. Although the shadow spider possessed a unique prowess, it remained merely a novice creature in the realm of Qi condensation. Prior to undertaking the mission, it was imperative to thoroughly investigate the protective forces surrounding Zhu Defuk, leaving no room for error. With this thought in mind, Gu Changqing abruptly summoned the shadow spider from the confines of the system space. Hiss! A flash of light illuminated the room as the shadow spider descended. Tethered by a silken thread. Commence action. At the command, the shadow spider swiftly darted through the window, scaling the wall towards Yuan Hall with remarkable speed. Alert! The shadow spider has exited the host's line of sight. Would you like to activate shared perception? Gu Changqing instinctively replied, yes. In an instant, his consciousness intertwined with that of the shadow spider, and the scene before him transformed into the spider's perspective. The bustling sounds of the street reverberated in his ears, immersing him in the experience. Not bad. Gu Changqing closed his eyes, savoring the sensations relayed by the shadow spider, silently commending its capabilities. With such an ability, whether for reconnaissance or assassination, he would undoubtedly hold a significant advantage. Yuan Hall and the Tianming Medical Hall were situated on the same street. A mere few hundred meters apart, the shadow spider swiftly reached its destination. As it neared the window, it overheard an irate tirade emanating from within Yuan Hall. Useless fool. You were tasked with tarnishing that brat's reputation, and you ended up with a broken leg? You can't even handle such a trivial matter. And you dare to seek compensation for your injury? Are you courting death? Boss Zhu, you never mentioned that Gu Changqing is a postnatal martial artist. And what of it? I have one of those right beside me. The shadow spider slipped through the narrow gap of the window, keenly observing the situation inside. Zhu Defuk's face was flushed with rage as he directed his ire at Li Zhuang, who appeared utterly despondent, wishing for nothing more than to vanish. His plans lay in ruins, his leg shattered, and now even compensation for his injuries was out of reach. Gu Changqing, is it? You hide quite well. Daring to encroach upon my territory. If I don't teach you a severe lesson, I shan't bear the surname Zhu. With a venomous glare, Zhu Defuk's jowls quivered as he seethed with fury. Lo Hu, tonight you shall bring men to demolish that wretched establishment. Not only must that brat be deprived of business, but he must also vanish from existence. Zhu Defuk produced a plump cloth bag and handed it to a robust man beside him. Lo Hu caught it deftly, opening it to reveal a dozen spirit stones, all of vibrant green. Though they were merely low-grade spirit stones, they represented a valuable resource for a rogue martial artist like him. Thank you, boss. I know exactly what to do. A cold smirk graced Lo Hu's lips as he tucked the bag of spirit stones into his bosom. Rest assured, I trust your abilities. Zhu Defuk's eyes narrowed slightly, a satisfied nod accompanying his words. Although the expenses of sustaining these thugs are substantial, Their utility becomes evident in critical moments. However, their current scheme is entirely visible under the watchful gaze of the shadow spider. Wishing to kill me? Let us see who meets their demise first. Gu Changqing's gaze turned icy as he commanded the shadow spider to lurk in the shadows of the wall, continuing to monitor the movements of Yuantang. As soon as Zhu Dafu's subordinates departed tonight, it would undoubtedly present the prime opportunity for an assassination. Nonetheless, there would be complications on his end. After all, Luo, who appeared to be a seasoned and formidable character, accompanied by a band of thugs. It would not be so simple for one person to handle. Preparations must be made in advance. Gu Changqing surveyed his surroundings, assessing the structure of the medical hall. Various rudimentary trap designs swiftly materialized in his mind. As a military doctor in a past life, the military was always at the forefront, with medicine following behind. Crafting contraptions and traps posed no challenge for Gu Changqing. Poison needles, sharp blades, itching powder. He utilized all available materials from the shop to their fullest extent. That night, the windows and doors of the Destiny Medical Hall were firmly shut, enveloped in darkness. Gu Changqing sat cross-legged on the rooftop, ever vigilant of the visual feed from the shadow spider. Inside Yuantang, Zhu Dafu had gathered all his subordinates, poised for action. "Boss, is it time to strike?" Luo Hu asked, wielding a long knife with a fierce expression. "Yes, it is about time," Zhu Dafu replied, casting a glance at the night outside. "I have taken care of matters at the government office. Even if someone reports it, there will be no repercussions. You may proceed without restraint." "Excellent," Luo Hu sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. "Let us go." With a wave of his hand, 7 thugs at the chi condensation stage promptly followed him out. "A mere rookie dares to challenge me, unaware of his impending doom," Zhu Dafu scoffed, striding alone into the resting room. Little did he know, a black spider stealthily followed him like a specter. The moment the door closed, the shadow spider accelerated its crawling speed, slipping through the crack. "Little spider, strike swiftly." Recognizing that the moment had arrived, Gu Changqing decisively issued the command. Chapter 4. The moment of the hunt. As the shadow spider entered the room, its gaze instantly locked onto Zhu Dafu, swiftly advancing towards him. "What is this?" Zhu Dafu sensed a shadow moving beneath him and instinctively looked down. "Humph, just a spider." With a derisive snort, he lifted his foot to crush it, grinding it beneath him. Yet, he soon sensed something amiss. There was no satisfying squelch beneath his foot. It felt more like stepping on a piece of iron, exceptionally hard. Zhu Dafu could not help but lift his foot in astonishment, only to discover that the shadow spider was not only unharmed but remained intact on the ground. In that fleeting moment, the shadow spider sprang into action. Its speed was astonishing, swiftly ascending the trouser leg of Zhu Dafu, charging upward with relentless ferocity. Caught off guard by this sudden assault, Zhu Dafu was momentarily paralyzed with shock, his hands flailing in a futile attempt to swat it away, unable to match the creature's velocity. By the time he regained his composure, the shadow spider had already scaled to his neck, sinking its fangs into his throat. The venomous fangs pierced the skin, embedding deep into the flesh. Lethal toxins coursed through the blood vessels of his throat, rapidly spreading throughout his body. "Damn the spider!" Zhu Dafu cried out in agony, instinctively grasping at his neck, fury igniting within him. The shadow spider nimbly leapt away, descending gracefully on a silk strand, then swiftly made its way to the entrance, biding its time for the poison to take effect within its victim. "This is dire. The spider is venomous." Zhu Dafu felt dizzy and disoriented, staggering toward the door with great effort. Yet, after only a few steps, he collapsed to the ground, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Help someone please." Zhu Dafu's expression was frantic, his voice weak as he called out. In his hazy consciousness, he vaguely heard footsteps approaching. His heart leaped with joy as he raised his head to look. What he saw next sent his pupils quaking, terror flooding his eyes. It was a creature resembling a humanoid spider. The shadow spider gazed down at Zhu Dafu with a chilling stare, its crimson eyes glinting with a murderous thirst. Without uttering a single word, the shadow spider struck with its lethal claws, plunging them into his skull and instantly obliterating the brain within. As its claws withdrew, a torrent of blood mixed with cerebral fluid erupted in a gruesome spray. Zhu Dafu's face contorted in extreme agony as he fixed his gaze upon the shadow spider, his life extinguished without a final breath. Gu Changqing, through shared perception, bore witness to the entire horrific hunt executed by the shadow spider. The bloody spectacle brutally assaulted his visual senses, vividly showcasing the brutal nature of the insect race. "Ding! Your shadow spider has successfully slain a chi condensation martial artist, earning you 10 energy points." Gu Changqing snapped back to reality, a surge of elation washing over him. This assassination mission not only promised financial gain, but also energy rewards. It was a lucrative venture indeed. "Tiger brother, this is the Destiny Medical Hall." A low growl drew Gu Changqing's attention. His gaze sharpened, sweeping across the street below. In his view, Luo Hu and his companions had arrived at the entrance. Exuding a menacing aura, passers-by, witnessing the commotion, hurriedly retreated in fear. Break down the door. Luo Hu's eyes gleamed with ferocity. His long knife pointed menacingly at the closed door, radiating an overwhelming presence. Immediately, one of the thugs brazenly stepped forward, delivering a powerful kick to the door. Bang! As the door burst open, it triggered a hidden spring mechanism behind it. In the next instant, several sharp surgical blades shot forth with ferocity. The thug's expression shifted dramatically. But at such close range, evasion was futile, and he fell to the ground, gravely injured. Witnessing this scene, Luo Hu and his companions were utterly astounded. They had never anticipated that a trap lay in wait here. Having dealt with one, Gu Changqing sat cross-legged atop the rooftop, a faint smile gracing his lips as he listened to the melodious screams of anguish. Brother Hu, could it be that the brat had foreknowledge of our plans for tonight? The thugs, gazing at the wide-open door leading into an abyss of darkness, felt a creeping dread in their hearts. With past experiences haunting them, none dared to recklessly charge inside. Damn it! How dare they resort to such underhanded tactics? Do they truly believe that I, Lord Hu, am an easy target? Luo Hu's eyes blazed with ferocity, his face marred by prominent veins. With a swift motion, he seized one of his severely injured subordinates and hurled him directly into the medical hall. Brother Hu. The henchmen beside him felt a chill run down their spines upon witnessing this. Even if Old 8 were carried back for treatment, he would likely be rendered useless. It was better to extract some value from him before his imminent demise. Unfazed, Luo Hu let out a cold snort, his gaze brimming with menace. Let me make this abundantly clear. Should anyone contemplate fleeing at this critical juncture, I shall be the one to end their life. He glared fiercely at the crowd, the cold gleam of his long blade reflecting his malice. Just as his words fell, a cacophony of crackling sounds erupted from within the medical hall. Old 8, having been tossed inside, had evidently triggered a mechanism. More traps lay in wait. Upon hearing this commotion, the thugs could not help but exhale in relief. Fortuitously, Brother Hu had been wise. Had they charged in recklessly, the outcome would have surely been catastrophic. This fellow is quite ruthless, using his own men as human shields. Gu Changqing, observing from the rooftop, cast a discreet glance at Luo Hu. According to the mission information regarding Zhu Dafu's subordinates, one possessed the strength of the acquired realm. This must be him. In a direct confrontation, even if they emerged victorious, the cost would inevitably be severe. It was prudent to hold back. Gu Changqing gazed down at the tether in his hand, patiently awaiting the prey to walk into his snare. Once captured, he would flay him alive. Seeing that the traps within the store had finally ceased, Luo Hu charged in like a fierce tiger, leading the gang of thugs who brandished their weapons and surged forward with ferocity. As the prey seemed to have taken the bait, Gu Changqing yanked on the tether with great force. With a loud crash, 3 iron pots suspended from the eaves suddenly tilted. Sensing the noise, Luo Hu and his men instinctively looked up, only to be met with a deluge of medicinal powder pouring down upon them. What in the world is this? My body feels burning and itchy. My eyes hurt terribly. I can't see. Fall back. The medical hall was immediately filled with piercing screams of despair. Even Luo Hu, a practitioner of the acquired realm, could not escape unscathed. His eyes were reddened and swollen from the corrosive powder, severely impairing his vision. Just as they fumbled in darkness, preparing to retreat, they remained oblivious to the shadow that now stood at the entrance. Undoubtedly, this was the shadow spider just arrived from Yuantang. Leave no survivors. Upon receiving Gu Changqing's command, the shadow spider sprang into action, plunging into the crowd to unleash a slaughter. Whoosh, whoosh. In the shrouded darkness, her sharp claws danced swiftly, striking with lethal precision. Blood splattered wherever she passed. Ding. Your shadow spider has successfully slain a Qi Condensation Realm warrior, earning 10 energy points. Your shadow spider has successfully slain a Qi Condensation Realm warrior, earning 10 energy points. The crisp, synthesized electronic voice echoed repeatedly in Gu Changqing's mind. As the system notification concluded, 7 Qi Condensation Realm thugs lay dead at the hands of the shadow spider. With the earlier demise of Zhu Dafeng, the accumulated energy points had reached a total of 80. Only one more was needed. Gu Changqing, utilizing the eyes of the shadow spider, cast his gaze upon Luo Hu, who remained standing amidst the chaos. Despite being a postnatal realm warrior, though his vision was impaired, his hearing surpassed that of ordinary men. With his back against the wall, he had narrowly evaded the shadow spider's recent assault. Chapter 5. Advancement and strengthening. You'd best not come any closer. If it comes to it, we both perish. Luo Hu gritted his teeth against the excruciating pain in his eyes, gripping his long knife defensively across his chest. Though he spoke bravely, his heart raced in fear. As he cautiously shifted his stance, He remained alert to any sound around him, yet the overwhelming scent of blood in the air deepened his trepidation. He had not anticipated that his attempt to silence witnesses would instead lead to his own demise. However, he was certain that, aside from himself, there was only one other individual in the establishment. If it came to a life-or-death struggle, he would not hesitate to take them down with him. Little Spider, do not engage in a prolonged fight. Feign a chance for him to escape. After a brief moment of contemplation, Gu Changqing devised a plan. Even a cornered dog can leap over a wall. A mutual destruction scenario would be unwise. Indeed, cunning was the way forward. The shadow spider nodded obediently, pretending to advance a few steps while creating noise. Whoosh! Upon hearing the sound, Luohu immediately swung his long knife. The fierce blade sliced through the air, narrowly missing the shadow spider as it swept past her. Anticipating the attack, the shadow spider deftly evaded. An opportunity. Luohu felt a surge of joy, promptly turning to dash out of the medical hall. However, the moment he stepped outside, a chilling intent to kill washed over him from behind. Trying to flee? It was too late. Gu Changqing's voice rang coldly. In the next instant, a sharp scalpel plunged into Luohu's back, twisting violently, shattering his heart. Luohu let out a harrowing scream, his body trembling as he collapsed to the ground, barely clinging to life. They've committed murder. Someone call the authorities. The onlookers nearby, unable to see the events within the medical hall, were now witnesses to Gu Changqing's assault at the entrance. Instantly, many were struck with fear, their screams piercing the air. Gu Changqing paid no heed to the commotion among the crowd, tossing the barely alive Luohu back into the establishment. The shadow spider is his hidden strength, and as long as it can remain concealed, he will do his utmost to keep it under wraps. Within the dimly lit medical hall, the shadow spider understood the unspoken command and immediately delivered a fatal blow to Luohu. Ding! Your shadow spider has successfully slain a postnatal realm warrior, earning you 50 energy points. At last, the matter was resolved. Gu Changqing surveyed the corpses strewn about, devoid of any pity in his heart. In this brutal world of martial arts, there is no protection of law as in his previous life. Survival hinges solely on personal strength. To live comfortably, one must remove all obstacles. Subsequently, Gu Changqing began to rummage through the bodies, collecting anything of value, ensuring that all that was precious found its way into his possession. In particular, there was a small pouch of spirit stones gifted by Zhu Dafu to Luohu, containing as many as 16 pieces. Such resources are exceedingly rare in the market for cultivation. A satisfactory haul indeed. Gu Changqing nodded in approval and then converted all the spirit stones into energy points. Ding! Conversion successful, energy value, 16. The spirit stones within the pouch were instantly reduced to powder, their spiritual essence fully absorbed. Was that all? A flicker of surprise crossed Gu Changqing's eyes. This equated to one low-grade spirit stone yielding just 1 energy point, which was slower than the gains from combat. Master, this is what I obtained from Zhu Dafu, the shadow spider stated respectfully, producing a silver ring from its ample bosom. Gu Changqing, intrigued, took the ring into his hand for closer inspection. Though it appeared ordinary, it subtly emanated a trace of spatial energy fluctuations. A storage ring? Gu Changqing quickly sensed its potential, attempting to channel his mental energy within, and his face lit up with delight upon discovery. Inside the storage ring, there were hundreds of spirit stones. Although they were all low-grade, such a quantity was undoubtedly a windfall for Gu Changqing. System, convert all into energy points. He commanded without hesitation. Ding! Conversion successful, energy value, 314. The host's current energy value has accumulated to 460. You may choose to upgrade the shadow spider or gather materials to create a new monster. Without a moment's pause, Gu Changqing opted for the upgrade mode. The harvest of the night was largely due to the shadow spider, and it certainly deserved its due reward. In an instant, the system panel appeared, displaying not only the existing data of the shadow spider, but also an option for advancement at the bottom, indicating that 100 energy points were required for an upgrade to the intermediate level. Gu Changqing's mind focused, and he directly selected the advancement option. Upon completion of the operation, the panel shimmered with golden light. Soon after, a brand new monster compendium emerged. Ding! Upgrade successful. Congratulations, your shadow spider has attained advancement. With its combat power comprehensively enhanced. New skill unlocked, web binding, strength assessment, early postnatal realm. To upgrade to a higher tier, 1,000 energy points are required. Gu Changqing observed that the shadow spider's already alluring figure had transformed into an even more seductive and enchanting form. Its facial features were exquisitely defined, exuding an air of cold elegance and sinister charm. Yet, it still retained some characteristics of its insectoid lineage. 6 razor-sharp spider legs protruded from its back, and its fingers were long and pointed. This metamorphosis resembled a meticulously crafted work of art, where strength and beauty harmoniously coalesced. Not bad at all. Gu Changqing appraised the shadow spider's transformation, unable to suppress his admiration. Having merely ascended to a mid-tier form, it already possessed strength rivaling that of an accomplished martial artist. If it continued to evolve and strengthen, wouldn't it be akin to defying the heavens? However, the cost was indeed exorbitant, as the energy required for the next upgrade had skyrocketed tenfold. Gu Changqing felt a sense of acceptance regarding this, much like in his previous life when playing games. The experience points required for advancement inevitably increased with each level, with the remaining 290 energy points insufficient for upgrading the shadow spider. He decided to create another new creature instead. Murmuring to himself, he had formed a plan. Yet, he needed to resolve the immediate troubles before proceeding. Gu Changqing glanced at the scattered corpses on the ground, and then seated himself in a chair, crossing his legs. Next, he would undoubtedly await the arrival of the officials to collect the bodies. After about half an hour, the constables finally arrived, appearing sluggish and seemingly just returning from a late-night meal. Wasn't there a report of a violent incident? Why was there no sign of commotion at the scene? The burly leader surveyed the surroundings, his face contorted in annoyance as he bellowed. If I find out who falsely reported this crime, I shall not spare them. Surly. It's over at the Tianming Medical Hall. You can see the bloodstains outside. A gaunt onlooker respectfully approached. Oh. Constable Li glanced towards the Tianming Medical Hall, his expression shifting to one of understanding. Having heard of the clinic's misuse of counterfeit medicines and fraudulent practices, he speculated that it was likely a case of retaliation from a patient. If that fraudulent doctor had indeed been killed, the perpetrator might merely be seen as an avenger. Upon hearing this, the surrounding constables were filled with admiration. Constable Li's words deftly placed the blame squarely on the victim. After all, they had just received a bribe from Boss Zhu today, so they could hardly investigate further. They would merely conduct a superficial inquiry and dismiss the case. Chapter 6. I have evidence, let us go. We must enter and collect the bodies. After laying the groundwork in front of the gathered crowd, Li Biao led a group of constables into the Tianming Medical Hall. Upon entering, they were immediately assaulted by a nauseating stench of blood, illuminated by the flickering oil lamps. They beheld a gruesome sight. Bodies lay strewn across the floor, immersed in pools of blood, presenting a scene of utter devastation. Didn't they say there was only one corpse? How could there be so many? Staring at the horrific tableau, the constables froze in shock, their faces betraying their disbelief. Damn it. They had received less than expected in bribes. Li Biao furrowed his brows, feeling cheated. Handling a single homicide alongside 8 murder cases cannot possibly yield the same price. It must surely multiply several times. Captain Li, the appearance of this corpse bears a striking resemblance to Luo, Hu from Yuantang, does it not? At that moment, the puzzled voice of a constable drew Li Biao's attention. He leaned closer, holding an oil lamp, and his countenance shifted drastically. This was no mere resemblance. It was unmistakably Luo Hu. What is the meaning of this? Li Biao's voice trembled and his throat felt constricted. The situation was straightforward. They attempted a home invasion and met their demise through my justified self-defense. Just as Li Biao was engulfed in confusion, a calm voice suddenly emanated from behind him. Startled, the constables were like startled birds, struck with fear. Who goes there? Li Biao whirled around to see a young man clad in white, leisurely perched beside the medicine cabinet, legs crossed. Boss, this fellow is the owner of Tianming Medical Hall, named Gu Changqing. Upon hearing this, Li Biao's heart quaked. He was still alive. He had anticipated this visit to be a mere formality, but it had entirely surpassed his expectations. Not only was Gu Changqing alive, but Luo Hu and the others from Yuantang were all deceased. How should this situation be resolved? Captain Li, trouble is afoot. Boss Zhu has been assassinated at Yuantang. Before Li Biao could recover from his shock, a rotund constable hurried into Tianming Medical Hall. Upon receiving such explosive news, Li Biao's pupils constricted, nearly causing him to drop the oil lamp. In astonishment, he gazed at the panting constable and exclaimed, "When did Boss Zhu meet his end?" The constable quickly replied, "Judging by the coagulation of the blood at the scene, he likely perished approximately half an hour ago." The manner of his death was horrific. It appears that his skull was pierced by some sharp instrument, and the assailant left no trace. Hearing this, Li Biao gasped in disbelief. Although Zhu Dafu lacked formidable power, he was at least at the qi condensation stage. Assassinating him silently would be exceedingly difficult for an ordinary person. The critical issue was that the killer left no traces, which meant a scapegoat would need to be found to resolve the case. And at this moment, there was undoubtedly one individual present. With this thought, Li Biao's gaze fixed upon Gu Changqing as he abruptly drew the long knife from his waist. This scoundrel dared to murder Boss Zhu. Seize him. Li Biao's eyes widened with fury as he bellowed. A dozen constables swiftly surrounded Gu Changqing, cutting off all avenues of escape. However, at that moment, Ingzhu hung from the eaves by a silk thread. Its chilling gaze had long since locked onto them, poised to strike. At Gu Changqing's command, it would launch an immediate attack. To accuse me of murdering Boss Zhu, one must present evidence, Gu Changqing remarked calmly, unperturbed. Half an hour ago, I was engaged in a struggle with this band of ruffians within my establishment and was utterly unable to reach Yuantang. The onlookers outside can attest to my whereabouts. Li Biao let out a low grunt, his defiance unwavering even in the face of imminent death. What nonsense about witness testimony? Such claims hold no weight in my presence. Gu Changqing, with a slight smirk, retorted, if witness accounts are futile, what of material evidence? As he spoke, he retrieved a stack of silver notes from Zhu Dafu's storage ring, gently swaying them in his hand. Each note bore the value of 100 taels, totaling 10 in number. Is this what you refer to as material evidence? At this sight, a flicker of astonishment crossed Li Biao's eyes. The constables, captivated by the silver notes, found themselves momentarily entranced. Even the slowest among them quickly deduced the underlying implication of Gu Changqing's words. It was well known that the benefits offered by Boss Zhu today amounted to merely a few taels of silver per person, along with a late-night meal from the Drunken Fragrance Tower. Yet, when compared to this stack of notes, such offerings paled significantly. This evening's affairs necessitate your diligent efforts, esteemed constables, and consider this material evidence as confiscated, Gu Changqing declared, placing the notes upon the table. The constables, caught in a moment of hesitation, cast uncertain glances at Li Biao. Without his nod of approval, none dared to claim the money. Li Biao's gaze fixated on the stack of notes, his expression shifting rapidly before he broke into a sudden, sinister smile. Dr. Gu speaks true. Material evidence ought to be confiscated. Moreover, punishing the wicked and rooting out evil is indeed our duty. These scoundrels dared to invade a private residence and commit heinous acts. They deserve nothing less than death. With that, he seized the stack of silver notes, his eyes gleaming with avarice. After all, Zhu Dafu was now deceased. Was there any need to uphold integrity with a corpse? As for the scapegoat, one could easily find a death row inmate to sign and seal the matter later on. Chief, how shall we account for Boss Zhu's demise? Inquired one of the still unenlightened, portly constables. Fool! Li Biao glared at him, chastising. Dr. Gu was present in the establishment. The true culprit must be someone else. You are to immediately go to a Yuan hall and seal off the crime scene, gathering any traces of evidence. Yes. The portly constable replied with a nod of trepidation before hastily exiting the medical hall. Little did he know, his departure brought secret amusement to the seasoned veterans present. Fewer individuals meant a larger share of the spoils. Keep your mouth shut if you lack sense. Indeed, a simpleton. What are you all dawdling for? Hurry and remove the body. Do not hinder Dr. Gu from conducting his business. Upon hearing Li Biao's command, the constables understood and swiftly began to transport the corpse. The sooner they finished, the sooner they could divide the money, and each one was eager to comply. Rest assured, Dr. Gu, should any ruffians dare to trouble you again, simply invoke my name, Li Biao. Li Biao proclaimed with righteous authority to Gu Changqing. As long as it lies within my capacity, I shall undoubtedly assist you. This sentiment was conveyed with precision. You provide the funds, and I shall take care of the matters at hand. Well then, I thank you, chiefly. Gu Changqing replied with a gentle smile, secretly marveling at the efficacy of monetary influence. It truly proved to be a universal remedy, resolving troubles while also fostering connections. This stack of 1,000 taels was indeed well spent. After Li Biao and the others departed, Gu Changqing finally closed the shop door and summoned the shadow spider to clean up. Despite scrubbing the floor thoroughly, a lingering scent of blood pervaded the premises. Gu Changqing decided to concoct a rudimentary perfume using some medicinal flowers, honey, and alcohol, which he sprayed around the shop. However, not long after, a hornet, seemingly attracted by the aroma, flew in through the window. Upon entering, it circled around Gu Changqing, buzzing incessantly, drawn to the source of the fragrance. Though this insect appeared diminutive, it was exceedingly fierce, with a stinger containing venom. A sting from it would certainly be quite painful. Gu Changqing fixed his gaze upon the creature and was struck with an idea. Chapter 7. Capturing the hornet. The hornet belonged to the insect category, perfectly aligning with the criteria for editing monsters. Gu Changqing's expression sharpened as he commanded, Shadow Spider, capture it alive. With a swift motion, the shadow spider shot out a silk thread, ensnaring the hornet and dragging it to the ground. Almost immediately, a mechanical voice echoed, ding. A hornet has been detected. Would you like to store it as editing material? Without hesitation, Gu Changqing replied, yes. Storage successful. Please provide human blood and materials for editing. As soon as the words left his mouth, the hornet was instantly absorbed into the editing template. Gu Changqing reopened the still healing wound on his finger and squeezed out some blood. This time, however, he had learned from experience and used a small vial to collect a sufficient amount of blood for future use. Otherwise, each time he edited a monster, he would have to prick his finger for blood, which was quite painful. Regarding materials, although the original owner had little of value left, Zhu Dafu's storage ring held plenty. The Hornet S attack primarily relied on its stinger. Thus, selecting complementary material characteristics for editing should yield tremendous lethality. Moreover, the materials needed to possess toxic properties. As he pondered this, Gu Changqing retrieved a slender needle from the storage ring. Though small, it was forged from celestial-grade scarlet rock iron, an exceptionally resilient material imbued with fiery poison, capable of inflicting severe harm. A single stab could potentially fell even a tiger. Having chosen his material, Gu Changqing focused his mind, causing the poison needle to vanish instantaneously. System scan complete. The material of the poison needle is celestial-grade scarlet rock iron. The energy value required for extracting material characteristics is 500 points. Current balance, 290 points. Unfortunately, this operation cannot be performed. Upon hearing the system prompt, Gu Changqing fell into contemplation. In the Tsungyuan continent, treasures of heaven and earth were meticulously classified by quality into a rigorous hierarchy: earth grade, celestial grade, profound grade, spirit treasures, sacred items, and divine objects. Previously, using earth grade soul-devouring iron to edit the shadow spider had consumed only 100 energy points. This time, however, the scarlet rock iron was merely 1 grade higher, yet demanded 500 energy points. From this analysis, it is evident that the higher the quality of the materials, the greater the initial strength of the monsters, and correspondingly, the energy consumed is also significantly more. Upon understanding this principle, Gu Changqing had no choice but to put his plans on hold for the time being. Once he received his task remuneration, along with the silver notes gathered tonight, he would have the capital to purchase spiritual materials to acquire energy values. Subsequently, Gu Changqing performed a brief cleansing ritual and then reclined on his bed, gradually succumbing to slumber. With the shadow spider guarding him, he enjoyed a remarkably restful night. He even dreamt of creating a legion of monstrous assassins through the system's editing function, sweeping through the martial cultivation realm. This delightful dream was shattered by a series of knocks at dawn. Knock, knock, knock. Gu Changqing opened his eyes, gazing at the familiar yet unfamiliar surroundings. Shaking off his daze, despite having accepted the reality of his transmigration, he still felt a tinge of frustration. The absence of toothpaste and a toothbrush was indeed inconvenient. With a sigh, Gu Changqing exhaled softly, murmuring to himself, and then made his way to the door. The rhythmic knocking was unmistakable, and he knew who it was without needing to look. As he opened the door, he was greeted by the sight of the diminutive Changge. Dr. Gu, your medical skills are truly remarkable. Not only did the medicine cure the ailment, but its efficacy was also astonishingly swift, Changge praised. A broad smile on his face as his shrewd eyes scrutinized Gu Changqing. As an agent in the black market, he had established a network of informants and was already well aware of the events from the previous night. He was surprised that Gu Changqing had completed the illicit task so swiftly and managed to emerge unscathed. A stark contrast to previous failures that had resulted in significant losses for the Destiny Assassins. Is it to settle the medical fees that you have come today? Gu Changqing bypassed any unnecessary pleasantries, getting straight to the point. Indeed, Changge replied with a nod, stepping inside the establishment. According to the agreement, after deducting a 20% commission, here is your rightful sum of 8,000 taels of silver. As he spoke, Changge produced a stack of silver notes and counted them in front of Gu Changqing. As Gu Changqing accepted the silver notes, he couldn't help but grumble inwardly. The commission was excessively steep, with 2/10 being taken away immediately. Although he felt displeased, he had no choice but to acquiesce. In the early days of establishing the Destiny Assassins, the original owner had no agents or intelligence organization, relying solely on Changge as an intermediary for black market jobs, making the revenue streams rather passive. To break this impasse, it was essential to accumulate funds quickly and enhance the scale of operations to grow stronger and more formidable. Are there any new tasks available? With this thought in mind, Gu Changqing casually inquired, his tone revealing an undeniable eagerness for profit. I do indeed have another illicit task at hand, Changge said meaningfully. However, the assassination target has connections to a prominent family. So I fear that you might have the will but lack the means, Boss Gu. Gu Changqing remained non-committal and asked, what is the strength of the adversary? In his view, as long as the assassination target was not an overwhelmingly powerful martial artist, he found it hard to believe that bodyguards and such would be present even during mundane activities like relieving oneself or sleeping. There would always be a chink in the armor, a gap to exploit if one could just find a flaw. At the pinnacle of the acquired realm, Chen Kuei said with a smile, gazing at Gu Changqing. Are you truly willing to accept this assignment? As a broker in the black market, he was not concerned about a lack of assassins willing to take on tasks. His primary consideration was whether the individual could successfully complete the mission, thus enabling him to account for the employer. As for the fabled Destiny Assassin organization, he had long since branded them with a label in this industry, typically only capable of handling low-level tasks. With money to be made, why not take it? Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow, feeling a certain confidence within. This was because the strength of the Shadow Spider now rivaled that of human martial artists at the acquired realm. When the time came, transforming the Hornet into a monster and having the two venomous creatures collaborate on the assassination task would likely yield a high success rate. Very well. Let us agree upon this for now. Chen Kuei did not refuse, stating solemnly, detailed information will need to be gathered by my subordinates. Only after verification can the task be officially assigned. We should have all the intel by tonight, so you may wait in the shop. Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing began to calculate internally. He still needed 210 energy points to edit the Hornet, and he must quickly procure the necessary materials before nightfall to prepare for the impending assassination mission. Since you, Boss Gu, are interested in accepting the assignment, I must convey a cautionary note. According to the rules, if the task is not completed by the deadline, a penalty of triple the contract amount will be incurred. Chen Kuei said, a smirk playing on his lips. The remuneration for this illicit job is 100,000 silver coins. Should the mission fail, you must be prepared for financial ruin. Upon hearing the sum, Gu Changqing displayed no signs of excitement. The higher the amount, the greater the difficulty of the assassination target, which surely meant there were formidable protectors nearby. This money was evidently not easily obtainable. Tonight, I will have someone deliver the mission order. Farewell. With that, Chen Kuei turned to leave. Wait a moment. Gu Changqing seemed to have thought of something and called out to stop him. Chapter 8. The planning of the assassin organization. What is it? Chen Kuei glanced back at Gu Changqing, chuckling darkly. You are not thinking of backing out of the job we just discussed, are you? Of course, before officially accepting the task, such behavior conformed to the rules. In business dealings, mutual cooperation and benefit were paramount. He understood this well. Though his words sounded smooth, they carried an unmistakable hint of disdain. Indeed, this low-tier assassin organization was proving to be unreliable. Not necessarily, Gu Changqing replied calmly. I merely wish to inquire about which shop in the city sells the most genuine spiritual materials. Realization dawned on Chen Kuei, who awkwardly smiled. If Boss Gu is looking to purchase spiritual materials, I would recommend Tianbao Fong in the eastern district of the city. Although it may not be top tier, the quality is pure, and they have never mixed in any inferior goods. Gu Changqing discreetly noted the name of the shop and replied, very well. I shall pay a visit shortly. Since Boss Gu has matters to attend to, I shall not impose further. Chen Kuei, wearing a broad grin, did not linger. However, as he stepped out of the store, the smile vanished from his face, and he scoffed coldly within. Having just received 8,000 taels, he yearned to purchase spiritual materials at Tianbao Pavilion? How delightful. As long as this young man squanders his silver, he will continue to be my beast of burden, earning me commissions. Gu Changqing gazed at Chen Kuei's departing figure, a glimmer of coldness flashing in his eyes. Having lived 2 lives, he could easily discern the other's intentions. Yet, the current circumstances compelled him to utilize Chen Kuei's channels for profit. Once his intelligence agency for the destined assassins was established, he would inevitably oust this smiling tiger, saving himself a substantial commission. Afterward, Gu Changqing donned a set of plain clothes and exited the establishment. Tianbao Pavilion lay in the east of the city, while he was currently situated in the west, making the journey quite lengthy. He surveyed his surroundings and approached a row of carriages waiting for passengers by the roadside. You wretched cur. If you dare to occupy my spot again, I shall dismantle your shabby carriage. Get lost. Today, Zhang Chong took out his frustrations on the young man with the surname Meng. Indeed, Meng Jing, hailing from a slum, often endured grievances to avoid trouble. As Gu Changqing approached, he heard a cacophony. A burly man with a bushy beard was angrily berating a young man in gray, his face contorted with disdain. In circles where profit is at stake, such bullying behavior has become all too common. Look, a customer approaches. Upon seeing Gu Changqing, several drivers' eyes lit up, and they eagerly rushed forward. Yet, under Zhang Chong's menacing glare, they quickly recoiled, afraid to solicit passengers. Where does this esteemed guest wish to go? My carriage is spacious and guarantees comfort. Zhang Chong immediately stepped forward, flashing a toothy grin. However, Gu Changqing paid him no mind and walked directly to the carriage beside the young man in gray. Do you know the way to Tianbao Pavilion in the eastern district? Upon hearing Gu Changqing's inquiry, Meng Jing's clear eyes flickered with surprise. He quickly regained his composure and nodded enthusiastically. I know a shortcut through the nearby districts. We can reach it in no time. Very well, then I shall choose you. Gu Changqing's gaze swept over the nearby carriage. Although somewhat worn, it was impeccably clean. Young man, in our line of work, we abide by the rule of first come, first served. I was the one who inquired first. Zhang Chang strode over, positioning himself in front of Gu Changqing with an unmistakably displeased expression. Observing this, the surrounding drivers subtly shook their heads. It was evident that Zhang Chang had failed to secure a fare and was clearly unhappy. I have the freedom to choose. Gu Changqing's tone was cold, showing no inclination to yield. Freedom, is it? I shall see how this lad manages to attract customers without a horse. Zhang Chang, furious and humiliated, abruptly turned his ire towards Meng Jing, sneering menacingly. He extracted an iron rod and struck fiercely at the head of the black horse. Gu Changqing's gaze darkened. Yet suddenly a whistle pierced the air. In the next instant, the black horse raised its leg with lightning speed, catching Zhang Chang off guard as he was sent flying. A resounding thud echoed as Zhang Chang crashed to the ground, curling up in agony, his cries of distress piercing the atmosphere. The unexpected scene caused the nearby drivers to collectively gasp in astonishment. Clearly, they had not anticipated that the horse, usually employed by Meng Jing for pulling the cart, would display such ferocity. Was that whistle a command from him? Gu Changqing's eyes landed on Meng Jing, who was now under scrutiny. This young man, tall and robust, bore a seemingly simple demeanor, yet his earlier actions revealed him to be anything but weak. Indeed, those who appear modest and unassuming are often the ones best left undisturbed. Dr. Gu, you may board the carriage, Meng Jing said with a grin, disregarding the still wailing Zhang Chang. Upon hearing himself addressed, Gu Changqing did not ponder much on it. After all, the Tianming Medical Hall had been established in this neighborhood for nearly a year, and many were familiar with him. He swiftly made his way onto the cart. Go, Meng Jing urged, pulling the reins, and the black horse began to pull the carriage steadily forward. As Gu Changqing sat within, he observed the bustling crowds on the street, lost in contemplation. Although the system's capabilities allowed for the creation of monsters to serve as assassins, an intelligence agency needed to infiltrate various circles, acting like spies to gather information. Furthermore, it would need to be expansive, ideally encompassing the entirety of the Daong dynasty to function effectively. Thus, members of the intelligence team must be human, while the monstrous insects would provide support from the shadows. He resolved to visit the black market another day to seek suitable candidates. With his focus returned, Gu Changqing had already formulated a clear plan for the development of the assassin organization. Securing a sagacious agent would undoubtedly enhance his prospects. After all, with his current funds and connections, establishing an intelligence organization was no small feat. Moments later, the carriage wound through a narrow alleyway and finally arrived at the western district of the city. Meng Jing brought the carriage to a halt and turned to say, "Boss, up ahead is Tianbeifeng. Thank you for your patronage. The fare is 5 copper coins." Gu Changqing handed him a silver ingot. "Wait for me outside. I have hired your carriage for the day." Meng Jing, glancing at the heavy silver in his hand, could hardly conceal his excitement. After months of pulling carts, this was the first time he had received such a generous payment. When he looked up again, Gu Changqing had already entered the shop at Tianbeifeng. Chapter 9. The second monster. Upon stepping through the door, Gu Changqing distinctly sensed a subtle wave of spiritual energy permeating the shop. He surveyed his surroundings, noting the shelves brimming with various jars and vials, most containing tonics designed to enhance vitality and replenish one's essence. On the opposite shelf, various types of wild spiritual materials were displayed, a dazzling array. Although they were of inferior quality, their prices were surprisingly steep. "Esteemed guest, how may I assist you?" Upon noticing a customer, the shopkeeper immediately approached with a beaming smile. "I shall take a look first," Gu Changqing replied, surveying the surroundings and carefully attuning himself to the spiritual energy fluctuations of each material, in search of the most cost-effective options. After all, the acquisition of energy value primarily hinges on the density of spiritual energy rather than its so-called rarity. Materials that are rich in spiritual energy and reasonably priced were his top choices. "Please feel free to observe, but our shop has a rule against touching." The shopkeeper quickly interjected as Gu Changqing reached for a spiritual ginseng. Frequent contact with such rare materials can cause the spiritual energy to dissipate. "I hope you understand." He nodded and bowed, his demeanor exceedingly sincere. Acknowledging the shopkeeper's words, Gu Changqing withdrew his hand, leisurely observing the spiritual materials on the shelves and making comparisons. The shopkeeper patiently accompanied him throughout the process. However, after a brief moment, he could no longer contain himself and inquired, "Esteemed guest, what exactly are you looking for? I can certainly make recommendations for you. If you require a larger quantity, we can offer you a discount." Gu Changqing did not respond immediately. After careful comparison, he concluded that spiritual stones were indeed the most economical choice. Typically, spiritual stones are primarily used by martial artists for energy cultivation as opposed to spiritual herbs, which possess nourishing effects on the body and thus come with additional costs. Therefore, the cost-effectiveness of spiritual stones regarding spiritual energy density was evidently superior. Do you have any spiritual stones? Gu Changqing directed his gaze towards the shopkeeper. What is the price range? The shopkeeper promptly replied, currently, we only have inferior spiritual stones available, priced at 100 silver coins each. As he spoke, he approached the counter and retrieved several stones. How many do you require? Judging by Gu Changqing's earlier meticulous observation of the spiritual materials, the shopkeeper estimated that his financial capacity could only afford a handful. However, regardless of the quantity, as long as the sale was made, it would be a profitable transaction. Not too many. 1,000 will suffice, Gu Changqing said with a slight pursing of his lips. Speaking softly, given his current financial situation, this was indeed the maximum he could procure. What? The shopkeeper was taken aback. Incredulity etched on his face as he confirmed. You wish to purchase 1,000 inferior spiritual stones. That equates to a value of 100,000 silver coins. How could an ordinary person afford such a sum unless they hail from nobility? Well, if your stock is insufficient, I can always explore other shops, Gu Changqing mused, employing a strategy of feigned indifference. Please wait, esteemed guest. We have sufficient stock, I assure you. The shopkeeper hurriedly stepped forward, his attitude growing increasingly respectful. This was a wealthy patron, and he could not let him slip away. At 100 silver coins per stone, what would 1,000 be? Gu Changqing's eyes narrowed slightly, hinting at deeper implications as he stated, if there is no discount, I shall compare prices elsewhere before returning here to make a purchase. Ah, my dear young brother. You certainly possess a keen acumen for business. The shopkeeper, with a mind as clear as crystal, could easily discern the subtle machinations of Gu Changqing. However, should he let this opportunity slip away, he might find himself bereft of returning patrons. Gritting his teeth, he solemnly declared, how about this? Today, our establishment shall grant you a 10% discount. What do you think? This proposition struck a chord deep within Gu Changqing's heart. The price of spiritual stones had long been transparent in the market, and a 10% discount was indeed the lowest price possible. If feasible, 1,000 spiritual stones would only require 90,000 silver coins. The shopkeeper smiled broadly and stated, cash in hand, and the goods will be delivered. It was settled. Gu Changqing, not one to dawdle, deftly produced a thick stack of silver notes from his storage ring. The amount was precisely 90,000. How refreshing. The shopkeeper's eyes sparkled with excitement as he swiftly began counting the spiritual stones. With the transaction complete, Gu Changqing found his finances once again stretched thin. The silver he had acquired from Zhu Dafu the previous night had been entirely expended on this purchase of spiritual stones. System, convert energy points. As he stored the box of spiritual stones in his storage ring, he silently chanted, ding, conversion successful. Congratulations, host. You have acquired 1,000 energy points. Subsequently, he opened the system panel and swiftly began editing the Hornet monster. Ding, consuming 500 energy points. Monster editing in progress. Congratulations, host. You have successfully created a Hornet-type creature. Please give it a name. Hornet, Gu Changqing casually decided, and an illuminated panel promptly materialized. Hornet, owner, Gu Changqing level. Intermediate combat assessment. Postnatal realm attack skill. Venomous stinger critical hit innate ability. The stinger contains toxins, capable of producing rainbow honey pills, and can transform into a humanoid monster. To upgrade to a higher tier, 1,000 energy points are required. At the bottom of the panel were two illustrations. The left depicted a dark red hornet, its limbs robust and powerful, with two sharp, curved fangs resembling pincers. Notably, the venomous stinger at the rear shimmered coldly. The illustration on the right undoubtedly showcased the monster form of the hornet. Retaining certain insectoid features, it boasted a strong physique, 2 pairs of wings on its back, and a tail resembling that of a python, complete with a long, sharp stinger. Its overall form exuded an imposing presence that instilled fear in those who beheld it. Indeed, male insectoid monsters appeared even more formidable and robust. Gu Changqing's eyes sparkled with admiration as he beheld the creature. He then turned his attention to the innate abilities listed on the panel, pulling up the information on the rainbow honey pills. Rainbow honey pills can be crafted from the pollen of spiritual plants, possessing detoxifying, healing, and beautifying effects. Astonished by the information displayed on the panel, Gu Changqing felt a surge of excitement. This ability was truly comparable to that of an alchemist. Chapter 10. 7-Colored Honey Pills. Esteemed guest, might you require any additional spiritual materials? In response to Gu Changqing's sudden silence, the shopkeeper approached with notable enthusiasm. I would like some pollen from spiritual plants. Gu Changqing replied, adding, any variety will suffice. but it must be the least expensive. Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper's demeanor shifted slightly. Generally, spiritual plant pollen is primarily utilized in alchemy, not only to harmonize the effects of elixirs, but also for flavoring and coloring purposes. Could it be that this individual is an alchemist? The shopkeeper scrutinized Gu Changqing for a moment before saying, "We have a type of cold spirit flower pollen in stock, but we only have about half a pound left. If you wish to purchase it, it will cost you 3,000 taels." Gu Changqing decisively responded, "Very well. I shall take it all." With that, he retrieved his entire fortune from his storage ring, presenting a total of 3,000 taels in silver. The shopkeeper beamed with joy, promptly bringing forth a vial to hand over to Gu Changqing. Upon opening it, he discovered it filled with a light blue powder, exuding a fragrant aroma. Gu Changqing turned away from the shopkeeper and discreetly summoned his tiger bee. Tiger bee, absorb the pollen to create the 7-colored honey pills. Following the command, the tiger bee dove into the vial, swiftly consuming the powder in a whirlwind of activity. Within mere moments, the pollen was entirely depleted. Shortly thereafter, a notification echoed in Gu Changqing's mind. Ding! The tiger bee has collected sufficient pollen. Would you like to refine 7-colored honey pills? Each refinement yields 5 pills and consumes 100 energy points. Surprised, Gu Changqing realized that merely providing the pollen would not suffice to directly produce the pills. There was an additional charge. This was akin to the subscription models of the online world he had known in his previous life. Even with an internet connection, if one wished to watch a movie for free, they were met with a barrier. Please subscribe to VIP. Recharge your wallet monthly. This system truly devoured wealth. Gu Changqing couldn't help but inwardly grumble. He then checked his energy points, finding he still had 790, more than adequate for the task. Thus, he resolved not to be stingy and silently intoned, "Refine." Ding! Congratulations, your tiger bee has successfully refined 5 7-colored honey pills. Feeling a surge of curiosity, Gu Changqing immediately extracted one of the 7-colored honey pills, examining it delicately between his fingers. It was perfectly round, roughly the size of a grain of rice, resplendent in color, and emanating a subtle floral fragrance. A single whiff brought a sense of tranquility. Though aesthetically pleasing, it was rather diminutive. Gu Changqing gazed at the tiny 7-colored honey pill, feeling a tinge of disappointment. This meager size was hardly sufficient to fill a gap between teeth. What could its effects be? After a brief contemplation, Gu Changqing decided to taste it. The flavor was sweet, and as it melted instantly in his mouth, a surge of energy coursed through his veins, cleansing him of impurities that had accumulated within his body over the years. Moreover, this energy is exceedingly gentle, unlike the frenzied nature of elixirs or those tainted with poison. In the blink of an eye, Gu Changqing appeared as if he had undergone a complete beauty treatment. His complexion radiant and his skin refined and smooth. Even the hidden injuries from his past cultivation had completely healed. Such miraculous effects are truly comparable to wondrous elixirs. As the impurities within him were eradicated, Gu Changqing realized that the flow of vital energy had significantly accelerated, surging through his body like a torrent, fervently refining his meridians. The several acupoints that had remained stubbornly blocked were instantaneously breached by the vital energy. Bang! A practitioner of the innate realm had emerged. Gu Changqing inhaled deeply, feeling as though his bodily functions had undergone a qualitative leap, filled with abundant vitality. A cyclone of energy erupted uncontrollably from his body, sweeping through the surroundings and causing the jars and bottles on the shelves to tremble slightly. What is happening? The sudden gust of air startled the shopkeeper, who glanced around in astonishment. Gu Changqing's mind stirred, and he quickly reined in the surging vital energy within him. He then looked down at the remaining 4 colorful honey pills in his hand and sensed a tremendous business opportunity. Many medicinal herbs possess the ability to detoxify and heal. However, the remarkable beautifying effect of these pills could easily outshine any skincare product. The key is their delightful fragrance, unlike the bitter and unpalatable taste of traditional elixirs. If introduced to the market, they are likely to garner immense admiration from numerous affluent ladies. With this thought in mind, Gu Changqing turned to the shopkeeper. Smiling as he said, "I have some pills here with effects that can detoxify, heal, and beautify. Would you be interested in purchasing them?" Upon hearing this, the shopkeeper's curiosity was piqued. "Show them to me." Gu Changqing opened his palm, revealing the 4 colorful honey pills. "What? Just these little things?" A flicker of astonishment crossed the shopkeeper's eyes. Had it not been for Gu Changqing's lavish spending in the shop earlier, he would have been tempted to curse. Conventional pills are usually no larger than a fingertip, and if the quantity is too sparse, they scarcely have any effect relative to the human physique. It is akin to comparing a spoonful and a bowl of food. There is simply no comparison. However, at this moment, even if these small pills were combined, they would not amount to even half of a standard pill. Though small in size, their efficacy is undoubtedly significant. Name your price. Gu Changqing replied calmly. If you find it difficult to price them, they may also be placed on consignment in your shop. The shopkeeper cast an odd glance at Gu Changqing. Did this young man genuinely believe he could offer such merchandise for purchase at this establishment? It was utterly absurd. The shopkeeper took a slow, deep breath, striving to suppress the turmoil within. I'm sorry, your pills do not meet the purchasing standards of this shop. Please seek another store. With that, he turned to arrange the spiritual materials on the shelves, feigning busyness, clearly indicating his intent to dismiss. Ah, what a delightful fragrance. At that moment, a beautiful woman clad in red paused outside the shop, inhaling deeply. Her nostrils flared slightly as she followed the enticing aroma into the establishment. Her enchanting eyes suddenly fixed upon the vibrant, multicolored honey pills held by Gu Changqing. Such diminutive pills exuded an extraordinary fragrance. Lu Riyun scrutinized them closely and murmured in admiration. The 7 colors blend seamlessly, without a hint of discord. Moreover, there is a refreshing floral scent, likely derived from the pollen of the cold spirit flower. Gu Changqing's gaze flickered, surprised by her acute olfactory sensitivity. She discerned the ingredients of the honey pills merely by their scent. Finally, he had encountered someone with discernment. He turned his attention to the woman in red, noting her skin, smooth as cream, and her exquisite visage. The form-fitting crimson dress accentuated her graceful figure to perfection, exuding an undeniable allure. Her overall presence and demeanor conveyed an impression of competence and strength, reminiscent of a formidable businesswoman. This woman appeared somewhat familiar. Indeed, she was Manager Lu of the Golden Sea Pavilion. The shopkeeper's eyes narrowed slightly as he quickly recognized Lu Riyun's identity, his heart racing with astonishment. He discreetly appraised her figure, which was perfectly proportioned, voluptuous where it should be, and slender where it ought to be, embodying the essence of the rumored exquisite beauty. Shopkeeper, are these small pills your shop's new products? Lu Riyun inquired, her gaze shifting towards the shopkeeper, curiosity evident in her tone. What are their effects? The shopkeeper's spirits lifted. To be acknowledged by such a distinguished individual indicated these were no ordinary items. It seemed the 7-colored pills held promise. Miss Lu, you truly possess an astute eye, he replied, quickly donning a smile and ingratiatingly continuing. These pills are indeed our new offerings. Despite their small size, they possess the remarkable abilities of detoxification, healing, and beautification. He promptly reiterated the effects as described by Gu Changqing earlier. Oh, they can even enhance beauty? Lu Riyun's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Her interest piqued significantly. The desire for beauty is particularly strong among women. Even at over 30, she found it hard to resist such temptation. Young sir, do these pills truly possess such miraculous properties? Gu Changqing, faced with Lu Riyun's inquiry, paused contemplatively. It was evident she mistook him for a customer seeking to purchase the honey pills, eager to discern their authenticity. With a calm smile, he responded, words alone are insufficient. If you are interested, why not sample one yourself? As the saying goes, one must be willing to part with something to gain something in return. Although he was a stranger to Lu Riyun, in the interest of promoting the honey pills, he decided to offer one free of charge. Very well. I shall not be polite then. Upon hearing that she could taste it for free, Lu Riyun accepted eagerly, flashing a smile at Gu Changqing. She reached out to take a honey pill, yet did not consume it immediately. Instead, her slender fingers emitted a wisp of vital energy, swiftly inscribing an enigmatic rune in the air. The intricate patterns of blue light danced, momentarily enveloping the vibrant, multi-hued honey pill in her palm. As if assessing whether it harbored any toxins. A runesmith? Gu Changqing's expression shifted slightly at the sight. In this realm, practitioners of various disciplines abound, with runesmiths being one of them. Capable of channeling primordial energy to inscribe runes, they can conjure spells and skills, often surpassing melee warriors wielding swords in the same realm. However, the threshold for mastering runes is exceedingly high, demanding both insight and financial resources. After a thorough examination, Lu Riyun evidently relaxed her guard, delicately placing the honey pill into her mouth. As it dissolved instantly, a fragrant sweetness flooded her senses. What a delightful taste! Lu Riyun's beautiful eyes sparkled, and she could not help but let out a soft sigh. She felt as if she had been stimulated by some elixir, her complexion flushing with a rosy hue. To her astonishment, the melting liquid in her mouth was akin to a myriad of blossoms bursting forth, its flavor utterly exquisite. Soon, the effects of the honey pill swiftly permeated her body. Her already well-maintained skin became even more taut and smooth, radiating a delicate rosy glow. Remarkably, the fine lines at the corners of her eyes were entirely smoothed out. Overall, she appeared to have shed more than a decade from her age. Sensing the significant transformation within herself, Lu Riyun hurriedly retrieved a bronze mirror from her storage ring. Gazing at her reflection, Her eyes shimmered with uncontainable delight. What is happening? This little pill is truly extraordinary. The shopkeeper, witnessing this spectacle, was filled with disbelief. Were it anyone else, he might suspect a conspiracy between Gu Changqing and Lu Ruyun. Yet, the woman before him was no ordinary individual. There was no need for such petty tricks. She was not only the manager of the Golden Sea Pavilion auction house, but also a top-tier appraiser with a discerning eye. No, he must seize this business opportunity before anyone else. The shopkeeper's mind raced. If he could procure these pills and resell them to Lu Ruyun, he would undoubtedly reap a handsome profit. With this thought in mind, he approached Gu Changqing while Lu Ruyun was still admiring her beauty, whispering, "Esteemed guest, I shall take all 3 pills you possess. In the future, I will purchase as many as you have. You shall be most satisfied with the price." Gu Changqing regarded the shopkeeper's eager demeanor without offering much in response. The identity of the buyer was of little concern to him. His focus lay solely on the monetary aspect. This amount, the shopkeeper indicated with 2 fingers, for the 3 pills. How does 2,000 silver coins sound? Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing silently calculated. The cost of the spiritual plant pollen was 3,000, while the expense for crafting the honey pills was 100 energy points, equivalent to 10,000 taels. Thus, the total cost amounted to 13,000. Although only 3 pills remained, the offered price of 2,000 was an utter loss. Gu Changqing's expression darkened, and he could scarcely muster a response. 5,000. No, make it 10,000. The shopkeeper, noticing Gu Changqing's indifference, hastily raised the price once more. However, at that moment, Lu Ruyun had regained her composure and discerned the underlying matter. Could these colorful pills be yours? She inquired with curiosity, gazing at Gu Changqing. He nodded nonchalantly. Indeed, these pills are known as the 7-colored honey pills. Such an evocative name for a medicine, Lu Ruyun remarked, her beautiful eyes blinking in appreciation. She then retrieved a silver note from her storage ring, stating, "Having consumed one of your 7-colored honey pills, here is the payment for the medicine. I wonder if this is sufficient." Gu Changqing cast a glance and was taken aback to see a note of 10,000. It is worth noting that the cost price for 5 7-colored honey pills was merely 13,000. Lu Ruyun had only consumed one, yet offered a sum of 10,000. After deducting costs, it was a guaranteed profit. "That is ample," Gu Changqing replied with a smile, accepting the note. The shopkeeper, observing this, was rendered speechless, astonished that such a minuscule pill could command such a high price. His earlier offer of 10,000 for 3 pills now seemed utterly delusional. "I am the manager of the Golden Sea Pavilion and also an appraiser," Lu Ruyun stated, fixing her gaze on Gu Changqing with a smile. "Though the 7-colored honey pill is small, it possesses unique qualities. If you seek to sell it for a handsome price, I recommend bringing it to our Golden Sea Pavilion auction house. The profits will undoubtedly be greater." The shopkeeper, sensing his business was about to be snatched away, felt anxious yet dared not interject due to Lu Ruyun's formidable background. "An auction house, you say?" Gu Changqing pondered. At present, he was in dire need of money. Selling the 7-colored honey pills at a premium was a proposition too enticing to decline. "The Golden Sea Pavilion has an auction tomorrow night. If you are interested, you may bring these 7-colored honey pills for appraisal and sale," Lu Ruyun asserted confidently. "With our Golden Sea Pavilion's assistance in creating a buzz, I assure you they will fetch well above 10,000. Gu Changqing nodded with a smile, signifying his acceptance of the invitation. If he could utilize the auction house to promote his product, he would no longer worry about fetching a good price for the 7-colored honey pills. "Very well. It is settled then," Lu Ruyun said, her face illuminating with delight. She had been concerned about attracting a female clientele for the auction, and the unique 7-colored honey pills would perfectly fill that gap. The shopkeeper gazed at the two, now united in their venture, his heart a tumult of emotions. If only he had not underestimated those small pills and had acted swiftly to secure a deal with Gu Changqing, he could have made a fortune at tomorrow's Golden Sea Pavilion auction. Regret coursed through him as he lamented, "I am blind. I am foolish. How I despise this." Chapter 12. The first aristocracy. As Gu Changqing stepped out of the Tianbao workshop, Meng Jing, who had been awaiting him by the roadside, immediately approached with the carriage. "Dr. Gu, where shall we head next?" "To the Destiny Medical Hall," Gu Changqing replied as he took his seat in the carriage, having no inclination to meander about. "Yesterday, I arranged an assassination task with Chun Kuei, and I expect to receive news today. I cannot afford to miss this opportunity." "Oh, so you are a physician." At this moment, Lu Ruyun appeared beside the carriage, her gaze lifted towards Gu Changqing, accompanied by a gentle smile. Gu Changqing nodded teasingly, saying, "If you ever feel unwell, feel free to visit the Tianming Medical Hall, where we offer complimentary treatments for gynecological ailments." Upon hearing this, Lu Ruyun couldn't help but chuckle softly. "Never mind that. Having just consumed a colorful honey pill, I can confidently say that I am now immune to all ailments. As her beautiful eyes sparkled, she gazed upon Gu Changqing's youthful and handsome face, finding him increasingly delightful. By the way, here is the VIP card for Jinhai Pavilion. It grants you access to the auction house without the need for an appointment. Lu Ruyun pursed her red lips and produced a golden card. Gu Changqing's eyes sparkled with excitement. It was pure gold. We shall meet tomorrow evening. After bidding farewell, Lu Ruyun gracefully mounted a luxurious carriage and departed. Dr. Gu, you truly are impressive. You even know the esteemed Lu from Jinhai Pavilion, Meng Jing remarked, his face filled with admiration. She is the daughter of the foremost family in the Daong Empire. The foremost family? Gu Changqing's expression momentarily faltered. He had not anticipated such a significant background for this woman. Had he inadvertently allied himself with a wealthy heiress? It was said that Lu Ruyun, devoted to commerce, had always dismissed romantic pursuits, turning down countless suitors from noble families. Meng Jing appeared to be lost in admiration of Lu Ruyun's beauty, exclaiming, "Indeed, she is as stunning as a celestial being. It is a pity that the Lu family, in their quest for royal connections, is likely to arrange her marriage into the imperial family." Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing cast a puzzled glance at Meng Jing. How would a mere coachman know so much? Meng Jing grinned. I have a brother who delights in eavesdropping on gossip. I learned this from him. Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What does he do? After a brief pause, Meng Jing replied, To be honest, my brother specializes in trading information in the black market for profit. However, he has recently suffered from malicious competition and lost his source of income, so he is temporarily staying with me. Hearing this, Gu Changqing's interest was piqued. He was currently struggling to establish an intelligence network for his assassination endeavors, and if he could recruit that individual, it would undoubtedly alleviate many trivial matters. Please relay a message to your brother. I have a lucrative opportunity to introduce him to. If he is interested, he may come to Tianming Medical Hall to find me. Gu Changqing's gaze fixed intently on Meng Jing as he spoke meaningfully. As for the nature of this opportunity, I trust you have gathered some insights from him regarding the purpose of Tianming Medical Hall. Meng Jing's heart skipped a beat, and he averted his eyes, avoiding direct contact with Gu Changqing. I understand. I will inform him when I return. Meng Jing replied in a subdued tone, then fell silent, guiding the carriage forward towards the eastern part of the city. Along the way, through casual conversation, Gu Changqing learned that his brother's name was Feng Baiyu. The two had been orphans since childhood, living in the squalor of the city's slums, devoid of even the most fundamental household registration. You are still so young. You could learn a trade, Gu Changqing suggested. At the very least, it would offer a better life than pulling carts. Meng Jing shook his head and replied with a grin, Survival skills are merely a necessity of life. My true ambition lies in the pursuit of martial arts. When discussing his own ideals, his eyes sparkled with dreams of the future. Gu Changqing observed Meng Jing's broad and sturdy back, realizing that his physique was indeed well suited for martial training. However, the path of martial cultivation demands not only talent, but also resources. Without the means to procure even the materials for body tempering, how could one hope to cultivate? Get out of the way. Move aside. Quickly. After the carriage had traveled some distance, a sudden commotion erupted at the street corner ahead. Gu Changqing raised his gaze, witnessing the crowd parting like a tidal wave, as a magnificent horse pulled an ornate carriage, galloping wildly toward them. Any pedestrians caught in its path were knocked down and severely injured, creating utter chaos. This is bad. Meng Jing's brow furrowed. He realized the frenzied horse was about to collide with them, leaving no room for escape. With a steely gaze, he swiftly drew a long whip from his waist, and with a flick of his wrist, the whip lashed out like a serpent. Crack! The sharp sound of the whip sliced through the air, striking the horse squarely on the head. With a thunderous crash, the horse stumbled and collapsed, dragging the carriage down with it. Impressive skills, Gu Changqing thought to himself, silently admiring Meng Jing's quick reflexes. What is happening? A furious voice emanated from within the carriage. Young master, someone has obstructed our path and injured the horse. The coachman limped over to the carriage, reporting with trepidation. Who dares to impede my carriage? A young man in ornate clothing emerged, his face shadowed and his eyes glaring at Meng Jing. There was no choice. The situation demanded it. Meng Jing shrugged and replied solemnly, I can compensate you for the damages to your carriage. Compensate? The young man scoffed coldly. This horse is a top-tier breed from the capital. Can you, a mere poor cart driver, afford such a loss? At that moment, a dozen followers arrived behind him, each mounted on black steeds and clad in leather armor, clearly elite guards from a noble family, all possessing formidable postnatal strength. If you wish to compensate, that is acceptable. But what I lack is money, the young man sneered, his gaze fixed menacingly on Meng Jing. Kneel and apologize, then gouge out your own eyes, and this matter will be settled. The onlookers along the street exchanged sympathetic glances, aghast at the demand. To kneel and apologize was one thing, but to blind oneself was utterly merciless. And you, the lowly one in the carriage, get down here immediately. Gu Changqing, while appearing indifferent, had secretly summoned his tiger wasps. Establishing an intelligence agency for assassins necessitates the introduction of Fang Baiyu through Meng Jing. Thus, it is imperative to ensure his safety at all costs. Buzz. The wasp darted out of the car window and swiftly ascended above the street, its crimson eyes fixating on the young man in brocade below, awaiting commands. Chapter 13, Spider. Shall we join forces? This individual exudes an air of dominance. What is his background? He does not appear to belong to any local aristocracy, likely hailing from elsewhere. How audacious for an outsider to rampage through our Qingzhou city. Look at those guards accompanying him. Their familial influence must be considerable. On the street, the curious crowd murmured softly, casting wary glances at the young man in brocade and his entourage. Inside the carriage, Gu Changqing utilized the shared vision of the wasp to quickly assess the opposing forces. Although the numerous guards were all at the postnatal stage, they posed little threat. The only individual of concern was the man in black who now stood beside the brocade-clad youth. With a long sword strapped to his back and an aura of icy ferocity emanating from him, his prowess undoubtedly surpassed the innate realm. I had initially intended to grant you an opportunity for mercy, but it seems you lack the fortune for such. The brocade-clad youth glared coldly at Meng Jing, then turned his gaze toward Gu Changqing, who remained unperturbed within the carriage, feeling his dignity was being insulted. Why are you still dawdling? Subdue them. Whatever happens, I will take responsibility. Upon hearing the youth's command, the guards immediately converged towards Gu Changqing's carriage, their movements synchronized, exuding an ominous air akin to seasoned soldiers. Meng Jing's expression darkened. The formerly simple demeanor now revealed a glimmer of ferocity. Gu, brace yourself. Meng Jing shouted, yanking the reins forcefully. The black horse beneath him instinctively pivoted the carriage's direction. Then, to the astonishment of many onlookers, the carriage, seemingly drifting, sped backward down the street. Hurry, pursue them. The brocade-clad youth bellowed in a fit of rage. The guards promptly drew their weapons and galloped after them. Li Chao, you too, especially that coachman. He must die. The youth instructed the man in black beside him. With Li Chao's peak innate cultivation, he was confident that the carriage would be stopped in no time. My duty is to ensure the young master's safety, and I shall not waver. Li Chao replied stoically, devoid of expression. This is the command of the family head. I ask for your understanding. The brocade-clad youth furrowed his brow, but chose not to press further. On the street, Meng Jing urged the black horse into a wild gallop, the carriage creaking violently under the strain. The guards relentlessly pursued from behind, the distance between them steadily diminishing. Wasp, impede those individuals. Gu Changqing glanced back, issuing his directive in his heart. Hovering above the streets, the hornet suddenly plunged down, its wings beating rapidly. With a slight tremor of its tail, it unleashed its venomous stingers, which struck the horses with precision. The sound of anguished neighs resonated as a dozen majestic steeds collapsed to the ground, their eyes rolling back. Following the successful attack, the hornet ascended to the skies, trailing behind the carriage. What transpired? The unexpected ambush left the guards on high alert, their faces etched with shock. Poison darts? One sharp-eyed guard noticed the stingers embedded in a horse's leg and promptly extracted one for closer inspection. Such a minuscule stinger, yet its potency was astonishing. Frowning deeply, the guard spoke in a grave tone, tinged with apprehension. The assailant must be a master of toxins. We must not pursue but prioritize the safety of the young master. Hornet, return, confirming that the pursuers had ceased their chase. Gu Changqing summoned the hornet back into his system space. Had it not been broad daylight, he would have desired to harvest some energy value. But to avoid attracting unnecessary trouble, he refrained. Dr. Gu, was that your doing just now? Meng Jing, sensing the situation behind him, couldn't help but inquire. Gu Changqing remained silent, neither confirming nor denying the implication. Dr. Gu, you are truly remarkable. You dealt with so many skilled pursuers in one swift move, Meng Jing exclaimed, his eyes glimmering with admiration. Fang Baiyu was right. You are no ordinary physician. But at this point, he seemed to realize something and quickly fell silent. But rather a merciless assassin, Gu Changqing interjected bluntly. Since it was likely that their adversaries were aware of his identity, he saw no harm in speaking candidly. Oh my, is this truly what I am hearing? Meng Jing felt a jolt of anxiety, unsure how to respond. It is well known that assassins are typically very protective of their identities. An exposure could lead to fatal repercussions. That scoundrel Fang Baiyu, why did he share so much gossip with me? Now I'm in trouble. Meng Jing's heart raced, even contemplating fleeing on horseback. Do not panic. I am willing to be forthright with you. thus I have no fear of you knowing. Gu Changqing replied with a calm demeanor. I am currently in urgent need of someone to gather intelligence. Your brother possesses great potential. Be sure to convey my intentions to him tonight. Understood. Meng Jing swallowed hard, nodding eagerly like a chick pecking at grain. Additionally, I find myself in need of transportation. I shall hire your carriage full-time for 2,000 silver coins a month. What do you say? Gu Changqing recognized the straightforwardness of Meng Jing and promptly extended an olive branch. Should he succeed in recruiting him, Feng Baiyu, valuing their brotherhood, would likely be more accommodating. 2,000. Meng Jing's eyes lit up instantly. That is several times more than my earnings from pulling a carriage for half a year. Doctor, are you serious? His tone was laced with disbelief, as if he thought he had misheard. It was undeniably true. Gu Changqing offered a faint smile, stating that if he was unwilling, it was of no consequence. No, I am willing. From now on, I shall be your exclusive driver. Wherever you wish to go, it will be no problem. Meng Jing hastily replied, his face alight with excitement. With wealth, he could procure spiritual materials to refine his body. Having remained at the pinnacle of the Qi consolidation realm, he finally saw hope of breaking through to the postnatal realm. Rest assured, Dr. Gu, today, by whatever means necessary, even if I must bind him with ropes, I will bring that lad Feng Baiyu to the Destiny Medical Hall, Meng Jing vowed, thumping his chest with determination. Gu Changqing's lips curved into a smile, his spirits lifted. The 2,000 silver coins not only secured a driver, but might also facilitate the establishment of an intelligence network. This expenditure was indeed worthwhile. Upon arriving at the Destiny Medical Hall, Meng Jing wasted no time and headed straight for the slums. Hu Feng, keep watch at the entrance. Gu Changqing instructed, not rushing back to the shop, but instead making his way to a nearby restaurant. Perhaps due to his recent breakthrough into the innate realm, he felt an urgent need to replenish his energy and was now acutely aware of his hunger. Following his command, Hu Feng promptly flew to the entrance of the Destiny Medical Hall, taking on the role of a sentinel. Master, may I summon Zhu to join us? Hu Feng suddenly communicated telepathically, seeming to find the situation dull. Not a chance. I shall only accompany my master. The cold voice of Ing Zhu resonated in Gu Changqing's mind. Very well, it seems my master is indeed more important, Hu Feng replied with a hint of melancholy. Gu Changqing chuckled softly, shaking his head at the mental exchange between his two pets. Due to the infusion of his blood into their essence, they had gained a semblance of intelligence, making such communication rather unsurprising. Chapter 14. Target locked. Entering the restaurant, Gu Changqing ordered a lavish spread of signature dishes and began to devour them voraciously. While eating, he periodically monitored the situation at the Destiny Medical Hall through Hu Feng's perspective. He observed a queue of patients forming outside, unable to discern who among them were Chun Kuei's subordinates. That should suffice. After satisfying his hunger and thirst, Gu Changqing prepared to settle the bill and depart. However, at that moment, a group of individuals stormed in, aggressively commandeering the best tables. So it is them. Gu Changqing glanced over and recognized the very young men in brocade who had clashed with him earlier on the street. Fortunately, he had been seated within the carriage, shielded by curtains, and they had not recognized him. Those wretched commoners had better pray they do not cross paths with this young master again. Otherwise, plucking out their eyes and breaking their legs would be a light punishment. The brocade-clad youth sat at the head of the table, his expression dark as he slammed his hand down, causing the teacups to rattle. Having come to Qingzhou City, he had already suffered the loss of several warhorses before accomplishing his task, which was a bitter pill to swallow. Young master, you are being targeted by the black market. While you are out, do not act too ostentatiously, advised Li Chao, who stood beside him, his voice low and grave. With a swordsmanship expert at the pinnacle of innate mastery by my side, what have I to fear? The young man in splendid attire scoffed. Are you truly afraid? Li Chao slightly bowed. You overstate the matter, young master. After settling the bill, Gu Changqing cast a brief glance around before striding out of the restaurant. He fervently hoped that Meng Jing would not arrive at the Destiny Medical Pavilion too soon. Otherwise, it would indeed be a case of enemies crossing paths. With a dozen practitioners at the acquired stage, coupled with a peak innate swordsman, confronting them head-on would be quite formidable. Dr. Gu has arrived. As Gu Changqing approached the entrance of the medical pavilion, patients waiting in line surged forward. Most of these individuals hailed from the slums. Although the original owner had concealed his identity as an assassin behind the guise of a physician and occasionally treated patients at a minimal cost, his medical skills were rather subpar. Thus, the majority of his patients were impoverished. However, with Gu Changqing's background as a modern military doctor from the 21st century, the situation was now markedly different. Please, do not push. Take a number and line up, one at a time. Gu Changqing instructed as he opened the door and distributed small wooden tokens to the patients. Yet one individual caught his attention. The man appeared gaunt, but his eyes sparkled with vitality, and his gait was steady, entirely unlike that of a sick person. It seemed this was Changge sent to convey a mission. As their gazes met, Gu Changqing had already reached a conclusion and handed the last patient token to the man. The gaunt figure subtly nodded, understanding without words. After distributing the tokens, Gu Changqing donned his physician's robe and earnestly began attending to the patients in turn, prescribing medications. In this world brimming with spiritual energy, unlike the myriad viruses of Earth, most ailments stemmed from cold and wind. For Gu Changqing, it was merely a preliminary exercise. In a mere half hour, he had attended to more than 20 patients. Finally, the gaunt man stood before Gu Changqing. Dr. Gu, this prescription was sent by Boss Chun. I kindly ask you to diagnose it, he said, glancing around to ensure they were alone. He produced a piece of paper and handed it to Gu Changqing. With a focused gaze, Gu Changqing examined the contents of the paper. Target: Martin Yu, age 25, strength, mid-stage, acquired realm identity, heir of the Ma family background, count from a prestigious family in the capital of the Daong dynasty, personal bodyguards, 15 are acquired realm warriors, and 1 is a peak innate swordsman named Li Chao. Recent active location, heading to Qingzhou City on the night of the 9th of this month at 8 o'clock. Invited to the auction at Jinhai Pavilion. Reward: 100,000 silver notes. Task deadline: 8 days. At the bottom of the document was a shadowy portrait of a young man. Upon seeing his likeness, Gu Changqing felt an unsettling familiarity. Martin Yu, how could it be him? Gu Changqing felt a fleeting moment of shock as the visage of the young man in splendid attire surfaced in his mind. Boss Chen has sent me to convey a message. Ensure that the remedy is effective. The gaunt man meaningfully cautioned, otherwise, you will be liable for triple the medical expenses. Gu Changqing's expression darkened. He was utterly weary of this so-called commission and the potential compensation. Chen Kuei, that diminutive figure, merely facilitated an intermediary channel. Yet regardless of success or failure, he reaped the benefits, treating Gu as nothing more than a tool for profit. This remuneration, ostensibly 100,000 silver coins, would be reduced by 20% in commission, leaving a mere 80,000 in hand. Contemplating this, Gu Changqing felt a surge of frustration, reinforcing his resolve to establish an intelligence agency. With that said, I shall not intrude further, the emaciated man remarked as he grasped an empty medicine pouch and turned to depart. Gu Changqing approached the entrance, hanging a sign indicating that business was temporarily suspended and that he would not entertain visitors. His gaze then drifted to the restaurant across the street, where he spotted Martin Yu and others still dining within. Though the prey was tantalizingly close, they were surrounded by numerous martial artists, one of whom was a peak innate expert, necessitating a wait for the opportune moment. The shadow spider would discreetly monitor the target's movements, striving to remain concealed. After a brief contemplation, Gu Changqing suddenly dispatched the shadow spider. Although the tiger bee possessed the ability to fly, making tracking easier, the shadow spider was undeniably more adept in the art of stealth. Upon receiving the command, the shadow spider swiftly traversed the thoroughfare, scaling the restaurant's wall to reach a window, and gradually closed the distance to surreptitiously observe Martin Yu and his companions. Young master, your endeavor to win Miss Lu's affection by traveling from the capital to attend this auction is quite perilous, one of his subordinates cautiously remarked to Martin Yu as he surveyed the surroundings. If I can secure the beauty's heart, the risk is well worth it, Martin Yu scoffed, his demeanor icy. If I uncover who the employer is, I shall make him suffer beyond imagination. He then shifted the subject. Did you bring the items I instructed you to prepare? Rest assured, young master, I specifically brought 2 pouches of Hahuan powder for this outing. This substance has remarkable potency. A single whiff is sure to outdo even the most lascivious courtesan of the Yihong courtyard. Martin Yu accepted the pouches from his subordinate, a lewd grin spreading across his face. Lu Ruyun, you pretend to be aloof and indifferent, do you? With this Hahuan powder, I shall see how you writhe beneath me. His excitement intensified as he fixated on the 2 pouches. Meanwhile, Li Chao remained silent, his piercing gaze intermittently scanning the patrons moving about, vigilant as a cheetah. He held Martin Yu's arrogance in deep contempt, viewing him as nothing more than a spoiled scion who relied on familial power to bully the weak while cowering before the strong. It was no wonder that he had attracted the ire of certain unseen forces, leading to his hiring of an assassin in the black market. Chapter 15. Restless in the medical hall, Gu Changqing furrowed his brows. Through the shared perception of the shadow spider, he had learned of Martin Yu's unscrupulous scheming. Consequently, it was highly probable that this individual would pose a threat to Lu Ruyun at tomorrow night's auction. Should he fall into my grasp, it would be his misfortune. Gu Changqing's expression turned cold, and a deeper murderous intent surged within him. The proceeds from the auction of the 7-colored honey pills required Lu Ruyun's resources to gain prominence. He could not allow her to sabotage that plan. Moments later, Martin Yu and his companions had settled their bill and departed from the restaurant. The shadow spider silently trailed behind, its icy gaze fixated on its prey. However, without Gu Changqing's command, it refrained from acting recklessly. Thus, it followed them to the inn, stealthily entering the establishment. Strange, why does it feel as though someone is watching me? As Martin Yu walked further, an increasing sense of unease gripped his heart, prompting him to glance back. Ever since he was at the restaurant, he had felt an unseen pair of eyes scrutinizing him, but given the throngs of people around, he dismissed the notion. Yet now, having entered the inn, that sensation persisted, akin to being followed by a ghost, leaving him inexplicably anxious. "Young master, are we being followed?" Li Chao, noticing Martin Yu's expression, inquired. "My instincts have always been sharp. It is likely so," Martin Yu replied, retracting his gaze, a hint of tension in his voice. Li Chao's eyes darkened, his gaze piercing as he scanned the inn's entrance, observing the bustling crowd outside. Unbeknownst to him, the shadow spider lay concealed in the shadows, almost impossible to detect. Seeing no suspicious individuals, Li Chao remained vigilant, instructing his subordinates, "You two keep watch outside the inn. Report to me promptly if anything arises. You, go to the magistrate's office and inform them that the legitimate heir of the Li family from the capital is here, requesting increased security patrols in this area." Understood. Immediately, 3 of his subordinates sprang into action. "Young master, for the time being, it would be best if you do not leave my sight," Li Chao said earnestly, his gaze fixed firmly on Martin Yu. "Very well," Martin Yu nodded, his lips trembling. He realized he was likely being targeted by an assassin, and his eyes, once brimming with arrogance, now reflected only panic. Li Chao's vigilance was indeed commendable. Executing an assassination tonight seemed imprudent. Gu Changqing narrowed his eyes, muttering to himself. Nevertheless, he did not call back the shadow spider, but instead commanded, "Little spider, continue to monitor them and gradually wear down their energy." "Yes, master." In an instant, the shadow spider's gaze remained almost perpetually locked on Martin Yu. "Sharp instincts, are they? Then let us see how restless you can become." Gu Changqing severed the shared perception, intending to let the shadow spider torment Martin Yu throughout the night. In any circumstance, the shadow weaver could convey messages through telepathy, freeing himself from the need to remain vigilant. Would Meng Jing be able to negotiate successfully? Gu Changqing's gaze swept over the hurried pedestrians on the street, his heart filled with uncertainty. After all, those adept at gathering intelligence often possess eccentric and unpredictable personalities, making them difficult to gauge. Thus, it was only when night fell that 2 figures appeared at the entrance of the medical hall. Leading the way was Meng Jing, followed closely by a young man clad in white. This individual bore an elegant countenance, yet his eyes were profound as the abyss, and a remarkable wisdom radiated from his brow. However, his complexion appeared quite pale, suggesting some hidden ailment. "Fong Baiyu." Gu Changqing's eyes flickered before Meng Jing could introduce him. He turned his gaze toward the young man in white, a subtle smile gracing his lips. "Dr. Gu, the reputation does not compare to the encounter. You indeed possess remarkable skills." Fong Baiyu stood with his arms crossed, scrutinizing Gu Changqing, implying that his presence here was not entirely voluntary. Meng Jing interjected. "Stop putting on airs. I haven't forced you into this." Fong Baiyu shrugged. "You've already secured your benefits. Why would I pretend otherwise?" At this, his gaze shifted back to Gu Changqing, his smile suddenly vibrant. "All right, I shall lay my cards on the table. For 1,000 silver coins monthly, plus all expenses related to intelligence gathering, I estimate it will start at a minimum of 20,000. Gu Changqing remained unfazed, replying, "Regarding finances, that poses no issue." "Good heavens." Meng Jing's eyes widened in disbelief. "I only earn 2,000 a month, and you demand 20,000 right off the bat?" Fong Baiyu retorted. "You're performing manual labor. I engage in cerebral endeavors. Are they comparable? Moreover, a network of intelligence requires managing various connections and maintaining a cadre of informants and runners. This does not even account for future expansion costs." Meng Jing, though confused, ceased his complaints. "Dr. Gu, if you are willing, we can formalize our collaboration." Fong Baiyu smiled with confidence. "You mean merely collaboration?" Gu Changqing detected the underlying implication, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Precisely, we each gain what we need. Your financial input, my efforts." Fong Baiyu added, with significant weight, "To my knowledge, the intermediary in the black market, Changge, extracts a 20% commission from each illicit job. And even if a task is overdue, a penalty of triple the compensation is required. However, I differ. You only need to cover the expenses of intelligence gathering without bearing the risk of penalties. This is what we call true mutual benefit." Gu Changqing remained silent. This cooperative model indeed offered better terms than Changge, yet what he desired was absolute control over the intelligence apparatus, rather than a mere collaborative relationship. A clever lad. So this is your scheme, truly crafty of you. Meng Jing's realization dawned, and he slapped Fang Baiyu on the shoulder. Though he restrained his strength, Fang Baiyu appeared overwhelmed, suddenly staggering and spewing forth a mouthful of blood. In an instant, his already pale complexion turned as white as a sheet, his lips taking on a grayish-purple hue, rendering him exceedingly weak. Baiyu, what has happened to you? The sudden scene left Meng Jing aghast, and he hurriedly supported Fang Baiyu, easing him into a supine position. Gu Changqing's gaze darkened as his fingertips made contact with Fang Baiyu's wrist, where the pulse was faint and feeble. Upon examining the pallid wrist, he noticed a thin line of dark purple gradually ascending along the blood vessels, unmistakably indicating the presence of poison infiltrating the heart. You have been poisoned? Gu Changqing inquired, furrowing his brow as he regarded Fang Baiyu. Yes, Fang Baiyu replied with a bitter smile, not long ago. I had a conflict with some rivals from the black market, and I was injured by their poison needle. This poison can only be treated with dragon whisker grass. But that material is exceedingly rare and expensive, which is why it has taken so long. He had initially planned to procure the dragon whisker grass with the funds from their collaboration with Gu Changqing, but he never anticipated the poison would take effect so swiftly. You fool, why did you wait until now to mention this? Meng Jing exclaimed, his eyes wide with fury as he sprang to his feet. I will do whatever it takes, even if it means robbing someone, to obtain the dragon whisker grass. Chapter 16. Winning hearts do not waste time. The poison has penetrated deep, and even if we procure the dragon whisker grass, it may not yield significant results, Gu Changqing interjected promptly, recognizing the invaluable opportunity to win over their hearts, which must not be squandered. His words were not mere rhetoric, given Fang Baiyu's current condition. The efficacy of the dragon whisker grass alone would indeed be insufficient to eradicate the poison, at best merely alleviating its effects. To eliminate the toxins entirely, the 7-colored honey pill was undoubtedly the optimal choice. What shall we do now? Meng Jing, in a state of desperate urgency, suddenly knelt down, his towering form collapsing to the ground. Dr. Gu, if you are willing to save my brother, I will gladly offer my life in return. Fang Baiyu was instantly moved to tears, his eyes glistening with emotion. If he were to survive, he would never again deceive his brother for money. Keep your life. The costs for treatment can be deducted from your wages, Gu Changqing replied, shaking his head with a calm smile. Matters of winning hearts must be approached with a natural flow. Being overly deliberate could yield counterproductive results. He then deftly flipped his palm, producing a 7-colored honey pill. Take this, and you shall soon be healed. Is it truly that simple? Fang Baiyu scrutinized the tiny, sesame seed-sized pill with a hint of astonishment and skepticism. Stop hesitating. Hurry and consume it. Meng Jing, acting with urgency, seized the 7-colored honey pill and promptly placed it in Fang Baiyu's mouth. As the pill dissolved upon contact, it transformed into a warm current that flowed down his throat, swiftly circulating through his body's meridians. Wherever it traveled, it melted away the dark, toxic miasma that had settled within his marrow like snow under the spring sun. Fang Baiyu's eyes sparkled with newfound vitality as he felt his bodily functions rapidly rejuvenating, no longer resembling the feeble state he had been in moments before. This is incredible, he exclaimed in astonishment, rising to his feet, his pale complexion visibly regaining its rosy hue. Meng Jing beamed with delight at the sight. The healing effect is astonishingly swift. Fang Baiyu, filled with exhilaration, attempted to leap a few times, bursting with energy. Although remnants of toxins linger within the body, they no longer pose a significant threat to one's life. Here, I possess 2 remaining pills. If you take one daily, you should be able to achieve complete recovery. Gu Changqing produced the last 2 colorful honey pills and handed them to Fang Baiyu. Dr. Gu, how much do these pills cost? Meng Jing inquired with curiosity. Gu Changqing replied nonchalantly. Today, Lu Riyun purchased one for me for the sum of 10,000 silver coins. Upon hearing this, Meng Jing's heart jolted. 3 pills. That equates to 30,000. Goodness. Fang Baiyu swallowed hard, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped the 2 colorful honey pills. 30,000 silver coins. This amount was almost several times what he earned selling information in the black market. Dr. Gu, Fang Baiyu's voice faltered. This is far too precious. Gu Changqing stood with his hands clasped behind his back, a smile gracing his face. Medicine is meant to save lives, not to be measured by value. Suddenly, Meng Jing knelt on one knee, his fist striking the floor with a resounding thud. Dr. Gu, thank you for your generosity. Fang Baiyu took a deep breath, a complex light flickering in his eyes. He slowly tucked the colorful honey pills into his bosom, then knelt on one knee, expressing, the life-saving grace of Dr. Gu cannot be repaid. From this day forth, should you need anything, I shall comply without hesitation. Gu Changqing's lips curled upward. This was precisely the outcome he desired. Since both of you are willing to follow me, this medical establishment shall become your haven. Gu Changqing raised his hand slightly, and a profound energy surged forth, lifting the two of them into the air. What pure energy! Fang Baiyu was momentarily taken aback, his admiration deepening. This cultivation must have reached the innate realm at the very least. Baiyu, you are adept at gathering intelligence. Surely you are aware of the current state of the Tianming Assassin Guild? Gu Changqing inquired tentatively as he seated himself. The boss is testing my intelligence-gathering abilities. I must not disappoint him, Fang Baiyu mused before responding. I do know a bit. To be frank, it has become but an empty shell. Although I am unaware of how many assassins you have recruited, intelligence has always been a weakness for the Tianming Assassin Guild. Furthermore, without an agent, there is no means to liaise with employers in the black market. Consequently, all income channels rely on intermediaries, who not only take a commission but sometimes even undercut the price, effectively turning the assassins into mere tools for profit. Hearing this, Gu Changqing nodded inwardly. Fang Baiyu indeed possessed a remarkable talent for gathering intelligence, articulating every shortcoming of the Tianming Assassin Guild. As for the so-called undercutting, it was simply that if an employer offered 100,000 in remuneration, the intermediary would only provide the guild with 50,000. Ultimately, the bulk of the earnings would be siphoned off by the intermediaries. In my opinion, the Tianming Assassin Guild should swiftly recruit an agent and expand the scale of its intelligence network to establish a comprehensive operational framework. Fang Baiyu continued, this way, we shall no longer be beholden to intermediaries, thus allowing us to generate greater profits. Gu Changqing pondered for a moment, his gaze drifting between the two individuals before settling on Fang Baiyu. The role of the agent must be entrusted to you. I am not suited for that. Fang Baiyu quickly shook his head. If it involves establishing an intelligence agency, I assure you I can accomplish it. However, the position of an agent is far from simple. One must be well-versed in both the dark and light paths and adept at maneuvering among various factions. Gu Changqing's expression shifted slightly, indicating that the agent's capabilities were indeed of great importance. Boss, although my abilities are limited, I know of a more suitable candidate. Fang Baiyu grinned, yet her character is somewhat unconventional, and she happens to be a woman. It is up to you to decide. Upon hearing this, Meng Jing finally interjected. You wouldn't be referring to Sister Rong, would you? Quite astutely observed, Fang Baiyu remarked, casting an appreciative glance at Meng Jing. Since both of them had joined the Tianming assassins, it was only natural to involve Sister Rong, aiding their boss in dominating the black market together. A woman? Gu Changqing's eyes flashed with surprise. Is she truly capable? Rest assured, boss, Sister Rong is undoubtedly capable, Fang Baiyu replied confidently. She has gained a modest reputation in the black market as an agent, skillfully connecting various factions. In terms of networking and resourcefulness, she is certainly not inferior to that old fox, Changge. Noticing Gu Changqing still in contemplation, he added, as for trustworthiness, there is no need for concern. The three of us have depended on each other since childhood in the slums, akin to siblings. I will bring her to the clinic tomorrow. You will see for yourself. However, Gu Changqing shook his head. I have matters to attend to tomorrow. Let us postpone it. He then retrieved a large banknote from his storage ring and handed it to Fang Baiyu. Take this 10,000 silver. Use it to establish the intelligence network, and I will provide further funds later. Fang Baiyu accepted the banknote, a gleam of excitement in his eyes, and then discreetly departed the clinic with Meng Jing. Based on his understanding of the black market, he was already aware that Chun Kuei's illicit dealings were indeed commissioned by Gu Changqing, and that actions would likely unfold the following day. At that moment, however, Gu Changqing was not focused on the assassination task, but instead summoned the tiger bee. Having exhausted the 7 colored honey pills to save Fang Baiyu, he needed to concoct more for the upcoming auction tomorrow. The noble families in Qingzhou City are quite affluent. Their estates should host various spiritual plants and flowers. Gu Changqing murmured to himself before issuing a command. Tiger bee, go gather some pollen. Buzz. The tiger bee immediately soared into action. In an instant, the estates of the city's prominent families became its targets. Chapter 17. Infiltrating the Liu family ancestral home as a member of the bee species. The tiger bee possessed an innate sensitivity to pollen. It circled above the city, its antennae quivering, swiftly pinpointing a grand, secluded estate. The red lacquered door of the residence bore the plaque of the Liu family. Though the architecture within the estate appears rather antiquated, it boasts a grand and imposing scale, with pavilions and towers arranged in a harmonious manner. This must be the ancestral home of the Liu family in Qingzhou City, mused Gu Changqing, as images from the tiger bee flitted through his mind. Upon entering the estate, the tiger bee was immediately captivated by a fragrance infused with spiritual essence, and it swiftly followed the scent. At the end of the corridor stood a stone chamber, from which the alluring floral aroma emanated. Outside the door, 2 maidservants were stationed. Wasn't the spiritual plant supposed to be cultivated in the garden? Why would it be indoors? Gu Changqing's curiosity piqued. Nonetheless, he decided to venture inside. With a flick of its wings, the tiger bee quickly darted through the ventilation opening. Before long, a magnificent bathing pool came into view, shrouded in mist. Floating atop the water were vibrant petals, and within the pool rested a woman, entirely unclothed. So, it was these petals that produced the fragrance. Gu Changqing swallowed hard, realizing the reason behind the alluring scent. Just then, the woman seemed to have finished her bath and rose from the pool. Through the shared vision of the tiger bee, Gu Changqing was presented with this captivating scene. It was Lu Ruyun. How astonishing! His pupils constricted as his gaze fixated on her. Upon recognizing that familiar visage, he inhaled sharply. It must be said, Lu Ruyun's figure was undeniably enchanting. With ample bosom and curvaceous hips, a slender waist, and fair skin, she resembled a pristine lotus emerging from the water, a true beauty of the mortal realm. The tiger bee, sensing its master's fervent gaze, began to circle within the chamber, observing Lu Ruyun from various angles. Why is this hornet acting so strangely? Lu Ruyun lifted her beautiful eyes, gazing curiously at the tiger bee, intrigued by its every movement. Quick, retreat. Gu Changqing suppressed his inner turmoil and promptly instructed the tiger bee to leave the bathing area. Lu Ruyun, noticing this, did not dwell on it and summoned the maidservants outside to assist her in dressing. Master, if you desire more, I can return once again. The tiger bee communicated telepathically, sensing its master's lingering interest. No need to be so meddlesome. We have more pressing matters at hand, Gu Changqing chided lightly, amused by the growing impishness of the now sentient creature. Following this, the tiger bee, after a thorough search, finally located a garden within the estate's rear courtyard. The perimeter was guarded by several Lu family sentinels. The tiger bee folded its wings and perched upon a nearby pavilion, observing the surroundings with vigilance. Inside the garden, the flora was anything but ordinary. It was comprised entirely of valuable spiritual plants. A glance revealed an array of rare species, such as purple monkey flowers, silverhorn trees, and sky blue flowers. The entire garden was suffused with a potent spiritual aura, the fragrance intoxicating. For an ordinary person to dwell here would undoubtedly promote longevity. However, cultivating such spiritual plants was a considerable endeavor. In order to thrive and flourish, meticulous care and the nurturing of pure mountain spring water are essential. Without substantial financial backing, a family of modest means cannot afford such endeavors. In the garden, a presence is felt. Gu Changqing's gaze sharpened, penetrating through the compound eyes of a hornet, landing upon an open space at the garden's center. There, a young maiden clad in white sat in meditation, her ethereal energy circulating around her, forming an almost imperceptible halo, as if she were in the midst of cultivation. Her skin was as fair as snow, her hair cascaded like a waterfall, and though her delicate features bore a resemblance to those of Lu Ruyun, they appeared distinctly more youthful, perhaps around 17 or 18 years of age. The maiden's serene posture exuded an elegance that transcended the mundane, resembling a fairy meticulously carved from white jade, radiating an unassailable purity amidst her exquisite beauty. The young mistress is indeed diligent, still practicing in the garden at such a late hour. It is no wonder she has secured a reserved spot at the Seven Mysteries Martial Academy, an opportunity that even the royal offspring find elusive. With her remarkable intellect and such relentless effort, her future achievements will undoubtedly be limitless, potentially surpassing those of her aunt, the esteemed Steward Lu. Outside the garden, patrolling guards occasionally cast their gazes toward the young maiden in white. Their hushed conversations betrayed their admiration and respect for her. The maiden, named Lu Shuanger, is the cherished jewel of the Lu family's current head. Not only does she hold a prestigious status, but she also possesses an astonishing aptitude for martial cultivation. Truly a daughter of heaven. Gu Changqing's gaze lingered briefly on Lu Shuanger before shifting to the spirit flowers swaying gently in the moonlight. Time was of the essence. He lacked the patience to wait for this young lady to complete her practice. The hornet could now act. No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than a shadow darted forth, the hornet swooping into the flower bed like a specter, greedily siphoning the essence from the blossoms, sending the colorful butterflies that danced among the flowers scattering in fright. Such subtle movements seemed to catch Lu Shuanger's attention, and she abruptly opened her eyes. Surveying her surroundings, she observed that aside from the fluttering butterflies, nothing appeared amiss. The guards patrolling outside adhered to their duties, none slacking in their vigilance. It seems my state of mind requires further refinement. Even the faintest disturbance can disrupt my cultivation, Lu Shuanger murmured softly, a hint of perplexity flashing in her eyes. Then, with a graceful flick of her delicate hand, she retrieved a talisman from her storage ring. With a soft hiss, at the moment the talisman ignited, A myriad of luminous patterns erupted, enveloping her enchanting figure in a misty veil of light. The young mistress has activated a barrier formation once again. This sight was disheartening for the patrolling guards, who sighed in quiet disappointment. Their nocturnal patrols were already tedious. Witnessing Lu Shuang'er practicing under the moonlight was the most invigorating spectacle. However, now they could only catch a glimpse through the hazy curtain of light. A barrier talisman? Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow, finding it quite to his liking. With no worries now, the hornet's mandibles expanded by 3 inches, rendering the flower's nectar barren wherever it ventured. After a gust of wind swept away the remnants of clouds, the system's storage compartment was filled with luminous, jade-like pollen. Ding! The tiger bee has collected sufficient pollen, enough to concoct 2 batches of colorful honey pills, requiring an energy value of 200. In the next instant, a line of notification appeared before Gu Changqing. The host currently has an energy balance of 690. Would you like to produce the colorful honey pills? 2 batches equate to 10 pills, sufficient for tomorrow's auction. Gu Changqing felt a surge of excitement and silently instructed, "System, refine all the pollen." Instantly, the energy value was abruptly deducted by 200. The pollen in the system's storage vanished in a heartbeat, replaced by 10 colorful honey pills. "Tiger bee, you're done for the day," Gu Changqing called out cheerfully. If he could sell these colorful honey pills at a good price at tomorrow's auction, the subsequent funding for establishing the intelligence organization would be secured. "Master, the target is alone. Shall we proceed?" At that moment, a chilling voice unexpectedly echoed in his mind. Gu Changqing's gaze sharpened as he swiftly switched to the shadow spider's perspective. Chapter 18. A deceit unveiled on the top floor of the inn, in a lavish guest room. Gu Changqing had now connected with the shadow spider, rapidly surveying the surroundings. The windows and doors were tightly shut, enveloped in dim silence. Martin Yu lay sprawled on the bed, faint snoring indicating he had fallen asleep. Meanwhile, Li Chao and others were stationed outside, taking turns to guard the corridor. Despite the stringent vigilance, this moment undoubtedly presented the best opportunity for action. However, Gu Changqing refrained from hastily issuing a command for assassination and instead instructed, "Tiger bee, assist the shadow spider." The current situation appeared rife with potential, yet one must always remain cautious of unforeseen circumstances. Upon receiving the order, the tiger bee, which was en route to the divine healer's pavilion, immediately altered its course and swiftly flew toward the nearby inn. Upon arrival, Gu Changqing scanned the street below through the tiger bee's eyes. He noticed that the pedestrians near the inn were not ordinary citizens. They were all guards from the local government office. The mere presence of a count's son warranted such attention from the local authorities in Changge, indicating that the Ma family must hold significant power in the court. After a moment of contemplation, Gu Changqing issued another command. "Tiger bee, be cautious when entering the inn. Avoid detection." To minimize any noise during flight, the tiger bee gently descended at the inn's entrance and stealthily crept inside. It then climbed along the walls to the top floor, capturing everything in the corridor with its keen sight. In the narrow hallway, 6 guards patrolled cautiously, their vigilance evident as they scanned their surroundings. Outside the guest room where Martin Yu resided, Li Chao sat cross-legged at the door, a long sword resting across his lap, eyes closed in meditation. With such stringent internal and external patrols, even the most skilled assassin would find it nearly impossible to infiltrate the inn undetected. Initially paralyzed by fear, Gu Changqing now observed the tranquil slumber of Martin Yu with a sense of unease. He switched back to the shared vision of the shadow spider. Convinced that something was amiss, "Let us see what comfort you have concocted," he thought. A glint of coldness flickering in his eyes as he resolved to probe the depths of his opponent's resolve. "Little spider, proceed." With the command given, the shadow spider, which had been lurking in the corner, swiftly ascended to the bedside. Its body quivered, transforming into a monstrous form, its razor-sharp claws aimed menacingly at Martin Yu's heart. Yet, in the next instant, bang! A metallic clang reverberated as the shadow spider's claws came to an abrupt halt mere inches from Martin Yu's chest. A shimmering layer of silver scales manifested beneath his nightclothes, effortlessly neutralizing the lethal strike. The shadow spider, undeterred, redirected its assault towards Martin Yu's head, only to be repelled by a radiant silver shield emanating from the protective armor. Indeed, there was treachery afoot. Gu Changqing's pupils constricted as he commanded, "Little spider, conceal yourself." In an instant, the shadow spider reverted to its arachnid form, swiftly hiding within the crevice at the foot of the bed. Almost simultaneously, Martin Yu abruptly opened his eyes, a mocking smirk curling his lips. He immediately rose and glanced toward the bedside, astonished to find no trace of his would-be assailant. "There is an assassin outside," Li Chao's voice bellowed, followed by the sound of the door being forcefully breached. 6 guards rushed into the room, swiftly searching for any signs of the intruder. "Where is the assassin?" Li Chao's sharp gaze scanned the room, a sense of confusion settling in his heart. Just moments ago, he had been attacked. Yet his protective armor had thwarted the assault. How could the attacker vanish so completely? Martin Yu's face was etched with disbelief and astonishment. The 6 guards exchanged glances. One tremblingly suggested, could it be a ghost? Do not jump to conclusions. The assassin may have mastered a high-level concealment technique, Li Chao replied, his brow furrowed in disbelief. He strode to the window, noticing that the hair he had placed as a warning remained untouched within the window's crack. This marking was intentionally set. Any intrusion through the window would have surely dislodged it, yet it remained undisturbed. However, the room was sealed on all sides, with no entry points save for the door and window. How could this have been accomplished? The more he pondered, the colder his spine felt. If such a top-tier assassin could traverse walls and shadows, the young master's future might be fraught with peril. Curse that assassin. I had intended to draw him out and capture him in a trap, yet he has escaped. Martin Yu fumed, delivering a forceful kick to the foot of the bed. As the bedpost trembled, dust cascaded down onto the shadow spider's back, yet it remained utterly still. The hornet had been lurking in the corridor, poised for action. Should the shadow spider be discovered, it would be ready to assist at a moment's notice. Young master, it is unwise to linger here. For the sake of prudence, we should return to the capital as swiftly as possible. Li Chao gazed at the now exhausted Martin Yu and earnestly advised him. Enough of the idle chatter. Tomorrow is the auction at Jinhai Pavilion. How can Lu Ruyun rest until she is secured? Martin Yu snorted in anger, responding coldly, I am protected by my armor. That assassin's attempt has failed, and henceforth, he shall not succeed. I refuse to believe he can do anything to me. Listening to this reckless demeanor, Li Chao tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword, his knuckles turning white. Were it not for the distinction between master and servant, he would have relished the idea of rendering him unconscious and dragging him back to the Ma family in the capital, thus avoiding this troublesome situation altogether. None of you are permitted to rest tonight. Keep a vigilant watch within the house. After delivering this reprimand, Martin Yu lay down on the bed, closing his eyes and falling asleep. Yes, young master, Li Chao replied with a respectful nod, then sat upright by the bedside, maintaining a close guard. The other 6 guards sighed inwardly but complied with the orders, remaining on high alert. This situation was becoming increasingly challenging. In the medical hall, Gu Changqing let out a quiet sigh. He had not anticipated that Martin Yu would be adorned with protective armor, had he not acted decisively tonight. It would have been difficult to foresee this. It seemed that the intelligence provided by Chun Kuei was not as thorough as one might hope. Had the assailant been a human, he would have undoubtedly been captured on the spot, unable to escape death. What should be the next course of action? Gu Changqing pondered, crossing his legs. The previous 2 attacks by the shadow spider had failed to penetrate the defenses, evidently. The protective armor was inscribed with some form of runes that activated a defensive barrier upon being attacked. However, no defense could withstand an unrelenting barrage of attacks. The crux of the matter lay in the presence of Li Chao's guards. Any sign of disturbance would summon them immediately. If one could isolate the commotion, would that not provide an advantage? As this thought crossed his mind, a sudden spark of insight illuminated Gu Changqing's mind. Earlier, in the garden of the Lu residence, Lu Shuang'er had activated a talisman to utilize an isolating barrier for tranquil meditation. If he could obtain such isolating talismans, the success rate of the assassination would undoubtedly increase. Gu Changqing nodded to himself, finding this method plausible. He promptly dismissed further thoughts, settling onto the bed to silently circulate the vital energy within his body, allowing it to flow through his meridians. Today, he had relied on the 7-colored honey pill to break through to the innate realm. Yet this enhancement, through pharmacological means, was not stable. He needed to solidify his foundation. Chapter 19. A knife above the word sex. The following day at noon, Gu Changqing awoke late. Just as he finished washing up, he heard the shadow spider's voice in his mind. Master, the prey is preparing to leave. Continue to monitor. Gu Changqing instructed, not paying attention to anything else. First, he needed to acquire the isolating talismans to have a chance to act. Meanwhile, on Martin Yu's side, although the attack the previous night had failed, their restless night had left them fatigued. Each one appeared listless, their vigilance not nearly as heightened as before. In such circumstances, even without the assistance of talismans, it is likely that after a few more days of turmoil, Martin Yu and his companions would succumb to mental collapse. However, with a mere 8 days until the deadline for their task, Gu Changqing could not afford to linger any longer. Meng Jing, diligent as ever, had been waiting outside the medical hall since dawn. Upon seeing the shop's door open, he leaped down from the carriage and approached with brisk steps. Boss, are we heading out today? Meng Jing grinned. If not, I could assist you with chores in the shop. Yes, take me to the shop that specializes in talismans. Gu Changqing replied, making his way directly to the carriage. Indeed, having a driver proved to be quite convenient. Moreover, it was evident that Meng Jing had refurbished the carriage after returning home last night, rendering it completely rejuvenated. Talismans? Meng Jing shook his head. Those are rare items exclusive to ancient martial families. They are not available for sale in the market. At this, Gu Changqing's expression faltered momentarily, and his steps came to an abrupt halt. Can they be procured from the black market? Yes, but the price is exorbitantly high. Even ordinary spirit-gathering talismans can cost upwards of 10,000 taels of silver. Hearing this, Gu Changqing inhaled sharply. Damn it, how can it be so expensive? The money I earned over the past couple of days has already been spent, and now I'm financially constrained, unable to afford such a purchase. Never mind. Securing funds is of utmost importance. Gu Changqing had no choice but to abandon the thought and climbed into the carriage, instructing Meng Jing, let us head to Jinhai Pavilion. The only viable plan was to participate in tonight's auction. If they could sell the colorful honey pills, they would quickly replenish their funds. With a crack of the whip, Meng Jing guided the carriage smoothly onward. Inside the carriage, Gu Changqing, with nothing to occupy his mind, connected to the vision of the shadow spider. Before his eyes lay a bustling street scene, with the shadow spider perched atop a carriage. Inside the carriage were none other than Martin Yu and Li Chao, followed closely by a dozen guards. Young master, are we headed to the ancestral home of the Liu family? Li Chao's voice inquired from within the carriage. Liu Riyun had certainly come to Qingzhou City, and she must be residing there. A meeting with her was essential. Martin Yu's gaze burned with eagerness, longing to catch a glimpse of her. Particularly, as the enchanting figure of Liu Riyun danced in his mind, his lust became increasingly difficult to conceal. Before the Liu family could entwine themselves with the imperial family, he must seize this beauty early, lest he lose his chance forever. But I have heard that the Liu family's prodigy, Liu Shuang'er, is currently sequestered in cultivation at the ancestral home, Li Chao remarked with evident trepidation. Is it not somewhat inappropriate for us to visit unannounced? What is inappropriate about it? Martin Yu smirked wickedly. That little girl may very well call me uncle in the future, and she has blossomed into a striking beauty over the years. If I cannot win Liu Riyun, having her would not be a poor alternative. Besides, such sheltered young ladies are the easiest to ensnare. As he spoke, a lascivious smile curled at the corners of Martin Yu's mouth, even envisioning the exquisite life of sharing two beauties. Li Chao furrowed his brows and chose to remain silent, refraining from further counsel. The phrase a character associated with desire carries a knife above it is essentially a harbinger of self-destruction. Were it not for the Ma families standing among the powerful in court, this individual would have undoubtedly met his demise countless times. Contemplating a visit to the ancestral home of the Liu family, Gu Changqing felt a stir of intrigue, choosing to observe discreetly. If Liu Riyun were absent from Jinhai Pavilion, he could directly proceed to Liu Manor to entrust her with the 7-colored honey pills. As he indulged in his thoughts, an alluring image of Liu Riyun bathing the previous night surfaced in his mind. Moreover, the shared perception of the tiger bee could even store and retrieve scenes for further observation. While Gu Changqing reveled in this visual replay, Martin Yu and his companions had already arrived at the Liu family ancestral home, only to be halted by 2 burly gatekeepers. Apologies, but our steward Liu has instructed that no visitors are to be admitted, one of the rugged men stated, scrutinizing Martin Yu and his entourage. You may leave. What is a mere gatekeeper now? Martin Yu retorted with a fierce glare. I am the legitimate son of the Earl of the Ma family and have connections with your steward Liu. Should you dare to impede us further, I shall break your legs. Upon hearing the title of Earl's son, the gatekeeper's expression shifted to one of surprise, quickly responding with deference. Allow me to inform the residents immediately. Please wait a moment. Though the Liu family is a prominent merchant clan, they pale in comparison to the court's powerful elite. As a lowly gatekeeper, he dared not offend and promptly turned to relay the message. Montong, redirect to the Liu family ancestral home, Gu Changqing commanded. He then retrieved an iron mask from his storage ring and donned it. Boss, while I may not possess your handsome features, surely I am not so disfigured? Montong muttered as he took the mask. Gu Changqing replied with a gentle smile, do not dawdle. Wearing it will be beneficial for you. With no further protest, Montong firmly placed the mask upon his face. The cold, heavy iron mask accentuated his towering frame, imbuing him with an air of formidable presence. Quite impressive, Gu Changqing remarked after appraising him. Moments later, the carriage turned a corner, revealing the imposing entrance of Liu Manor. Outside the gates, Martin Yu and his group awaited. Yet Liu Riyun was nowhere in sight. Ah, so it is them. Montang's gaze sharpened, grasping the deeper significance of Gu Changqing's request for the mask. Our boss is astute, preparing this mask in advance. Otherwise, we would be in trouble. He breathed a sigh of relief and nimbly dismounted the carriage. His towering figure, combined with the glinting iron mask, made him resemble a guardian deity standing protectively behind Gu Changqing. Such an imposing demeanor caused even the gatekeeper to regard them with newfound respect, inquiring politely, "Esteemed guests, may I ask what brings you to Lu Manor?" Gu Changqing replied nonchalantly, "Kindly inform Steward Lu that a friend by the surname Gu has come to visit." Martin Yu's gaze darkened abruptly, his eyes slithering over Gu Changqing like a venomous serpent, demanding, "Who exactly are you to claim friendship?" Gu Changqing cast a glance at him, as if regarding a corpse, and replied coldly, "What business is it of yours?" Preposterous. One of the guards immediately stepped forward to rebuke. "My young master is the legitimate son of the esteemed Marquis Ma. How dare you be so disrespectful?" Chapter 20. A favor for you to hell with your nonsense. Meng Jing, seemingly emboldened by some unseen force, shouted defiantly, "My employer is a close associate of the current prince. What manner of attitude is this? There are so many princes in the realm." He doubted the other party would venture into the palace to verify his claims one by one. If he wished to flaunt his status, he could easily fabricate a tale. Faced with such a fierce demeanor, the guard felt a pang of trepidation, his gaze shifting uncertainly towards Gu Changqing, and he dared not speak further. Martin Yu's expression shifted, and he quickly turned his attention to the shabby cart parked by the street, scoffing inwardly. With such a dilapidated vehicle, how could one claim to be connected to the prince? Gu Changqing couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Meng Jing was truly reckless with his words, stretching the truth a bit too far. To exploit the name of imperial authority for deception is a grave offense. Martin Yu narrowed his eyes and sneered. "If that is the case, may I inquire which prince you are referring to?" "None of your business," Meng Jing retorted bluntly, having been rebuffed twice in succession. Martin Yu's face turned a deep shade of anger. Yet, without confirming whether Gu Changqing had any connections with the prince, his usual cowardice prevented him from erupting in rage at that moment. He suppressed his fury and cast a subtle glance at the guard beside him. Knowing well that several princes had formidable connections, today, he would witness it firsthand. The guard unleashed a fierce shout and suddenly clenched his fist, aiming directly for Gu Changqing's face. Gu Changqing neither dodged nor flinched, countering with a swift palm strike that unleashed a surge of innate energy. Bang! In an instant, the guard, caught off guard, was sent flying, blood spewing from his mouth as he collapsed to the ground. Useless. Martin Yu's expression tightened, but he hurriedly retreated to stand beside Li Chao, feeling a sense of security at last. Early innate realm. Li Chao's gaze sharpened as he discerned Gu Changqing's cultivation level. In his estimation, while this strength might not warrant the attention of the royal family, he was certainly no ordinary individual. If he were to intervene, it would likely require considerable effort to defeat him. What is happening here? At that moment, a cool voice emerged from within the estate. Lu Riyun appeared at the entrance, accompanied by a retinue of family guards, her brows slightly furrowed as she regarded Martin Yu and his entourage. However, upon noticing Gu Changqing among them, her beautiful eyes sparkled with delight. "Mr. Gu, it is you," Lu Riyun exclaimed, her gaze brightening as she fixed her attention on Gu Changqing. "I hope my sudden visit does not intrude upon you." Gu Changqing smiled and nodded. "Not at all. You are my esteemed guest, and your arrival is always welcome." Lu Riyun chuckled lightly, her demeanor exuding warmth and hospitality. She had initially worried that Gu Changqing would not visit the Jinhai Pavilion, but his personal arrival at the ancestral home of the Lu family was indeed unexpected. "Miss Lu, it has only been a few days since we last met. Yet you have become even more exquisite," Martin Yu remarked, his gaze fervently fixed on Lu Riyun, genuinely admiring her smooth and delicate skin that rivaled that of a teenage girl. Although the compliment sounded somewhat excessive, Gu Changqing found himself in agreement. Lu Riyun was already a beautiful young woman, and after consuming the colorful honey pills, her skin naturally appeared even more youthful, radiant, and supple, reminiscent of a girl. With her as the spokesperson, the colorful honey pills were destined to create a tremendous buzz. "Mr. Gu, I am on my way to the Jinhai Pavilion for tonight's auction. Would you be so kind as to give me a ride?" Lu Riyun inquired softly, her gaze unwaveringly on Gu Changqing. Of course, Gu Changqing readily agreed, as he needed her assistance privately. "Miss Lu, that shabby cart of his is truly humble. It cannot compare to the spacious comfort of my carriage," Martin Yu scoffed, dismissively. "I am also headed in that direction and can offer you a lift." His eagerness revealed no attempt to conceal his affections. "Thank you for your kind offer, young Master Ma, but I have business dealings with Mr. Gu and must take my leave." Perhaps due to his status as a count's heir, Lu Riyun maintained a demeanor that was neither overly familiar nor excessively dismissive, striking a commendable balance in her response. "Mr. Gu, shall we?" With that, Lu Riyun confidently approached the carriage and elegantly took her seat inside. Although the carriage was worn, the company of such beauty made it worthwhile. Gu Changqing cast a sidelong glance at Martin Yu before turning away with a faint smile. "Did you see that? That is the strength of my employer," Meng Jing remarked with pride as he mounted his horse, guiding it forward amidst Martin Yu's seething jealousy. "You wretched woman, how dare you embarrass me? Sooner or later, you shall be begging for mercy beneath me." Martin Yu gritted his teeth, malice glinting in his eyes. "Tonight's auction, you cannot escape my grasp." He retrieved a pouch of euphoric powder from his storage ring, his expression darkening as he grinned wickedly. Inside the carriage, Lu Ruyun sat gracefully. Yet perhaps due to the carriage's slight jostling, her admirable figure swayed enticingly. Gu Changqing sat beside her, maintaining his composure, though his peripheral vision could not help but take notice. Such a seductive figure was no wonder that Martin Yu would risk assassination to pursue her ardently. "Manager Lu, are you quite familiar with that fellow Ma?" Gu Changqing shifted his gaze and initiated conversation. Upon hearing his name, a flicker of disdain crossed Lu Ruyun's features. "My family's enterprises have some dealings with the Ma family, and I have met him a few times," she replied, shaking her head softly. "This man, relying on his ancestors' contributions to the court, often behaves arrogantly. If Mr. Gu can avoid any unnecessary interactions, it would be best." Gu Changqing felt a stir within. Realizing that Lu Ruyun was not as simple as she appeared, possessing a keen understanding of the situation. Since Manager Lu intended to offer a reminder, he would grant her a favor in return. Gu Changqing casually crossed his legs and smiled nonchalantly. "A favor?" Lu Ruyun's expression shifted slightly, curiosity evident in her voice. "Mr. Gu, please elaborate." "I inadvertently overheard some information," Gu Changqing stated with an air of calm. "Martin Yu has instructed someone to procure Hahuan powder from the black market, intending to undermine you at tonight's auction." He continued, "Thus, whatever you choose to eat or drink this evening, it would be wise to exercise caution. Do not inquire how I came by this knowledge. Believe it or not, it's your choice." Upon hearing this, Lu Ruyun's brows furrowed sharply. Her beautiful eyes fixated on Gu Changqing. Although she was unaware of how he had acquired such information, she felt compelled to proceed with utmost caution. If Martin Yu succeeded, her life would be irrevocably ruined. As her thoughts raced, Lu Ruyun took a slow, deep breath and murmured, "Thank you for the warning, Mr. Gu. If what you say is true, I owe you a favor. Should you require assistance in the future, do not hesitate to ask." Gu Changqing raised an eyebrow and replied earnestly, "May I request that favor in advance?" Lu Ruyun's expression momentarily froze. Setting aside whether Martin Yu would truly resort to poisoning her, who would dare to request a favor so swiftly? Could it be that he expects me to repay him in such a manner? Lu Ruyun pondered, casting an odd glance at Gu Changqing. Chapter 21. On-site operation. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere turned somewhat delicate. Lu Ruyun subconsciously twisted the hem of her dress, intrigued by what favor Gu Changqing might be after. If he were indeed a lecher, then the collaboration regarding the colorful honey pills would be terminated forthwith. "I require a talisman that can isolate me from external disturbances." Gu Changqing smiled. "I am in urgent need, so please assist me in procuring it swiftly." Is it truly that simple?" A glimmer of surprise flickered in Lu Ruyun's enchanting eyes. "Indeed," Gu Changqing nodded with composure. "As for the cost, I am currently a bit short on funds. You may deduct it from the profits of the colorful honey pills later." "Ah, I see." Lu Ruyun smiled, relieved. She had initially anticipated Gu Changqing would make an unreasonable demand, only to find he merely sought a humble talisman. Was it truly so difficult to obtain an isolation talisman? Noticing Lu Ruyun's silence, Gu Changqing probed cautiously. However, he dared not mention the incident from the previous night, when he had manipulated the tiger wasps to infiltrate Lu's estate and witnessed Lu Shuang using an isolation talisman in her cultivation. "I rarely engage in secluded cultivation and do not possess such talismans on hand," Lu Ruyun replied with a gentle smile. "However, I have achieved a modest proficiency in runes and can sketch one for you." With that, she retrieved a piece of talisman paper and a small vial of materials from her storage ring. "An on-site operation?" Gu Changqing's expression shifted, his eyes brimming with curious anticipation. Generally speaking, the crafting of talismans requires a skilled rune master to channel true essence, subsequently employing various materials to inscribe intricate runes, which are ultimately transferred on a talisman paper. When needed, igniting the talisman paper allows for its immediate deployment, rendering it exceedingly convenient. However, the threshold for inscribing runes is remarkably high. Mere familiarity with the techniques and availability of materials does not guarantee success. Within the delicate lines of the runes lie complex fluctuations of energy, and even the slightest variation in texture can result in disparities in potency, rendering some runes entirely unusable. Among 100 rune masters, despite utilizing the same type of rune, each may produce 100 distinct effects due to their individual comprehension and technical prowess. Much like writing the same character with a brush, some may yield a crooked rendition, while others create a visually pleasing result. At this moment, Lu Ruyun had begun her live demonstration. She poured a drop of pale blue liquid onto her fingertip, infusing it with a strand of true essence. With her delicate fingers, she gracefully traced the air, and as her fingertip shimmered with light, the infused liquid was drawn into fine threads, swiftly forming a complex and enigmatic rune totem that materialized in the void, radiating brilliance. The rune was approximately the size of 2 fingers and emitted an obscure wave of energy. With a gentle tap of her fingertip, a soft hissing sound was heard as the rune was instantly imprinted onto the talisman paper. Is this it? Gu Changqing observed with a glimmer of astonishment in his eyes. Such a swift technique, if mastered, could undoubtedly yield substantial profits in the black market. Mr. Gu, this is the talisman you requested, Lu Ruyun chuckled lightly. Consider our relationship settled. Gu Changqing accepted the talisman, scrutinizing the rune totem upon the paper. To ensure absolute certainty, he focused his thoughts and directly infused it with true essence. As the patterns on the talisman glimmered and began to ignite rapidly, a translucent barrier enveloped the interior of the carriage. The previously cacophonous sounds from outside were instantaneously silenced. What does he intend to do? Lu Ruyun felt a wave of surprise at Gu Changqing's sudden and unexpected actions. Clearly, she had not anticipated that the talisman he required would be employed to activate a barrier here. If his intentions were indeed malevolent, no one would discover her cries for help. Realizing this, her expression shifted to one of seriousness as her delicate hand moved towards her storage ring. Her gaze warily fixed on Gu Changqing. Unbeknownst to Gu Changqing, who was oblivious to Lu Ruyun's anxious thoughts, he remained focused, his ears attuned to any sounds from beyond the barrier. He then attempted to call out, Meng Jing. Outside the carriage, Meng Jing evidently did not hear him. Showing no response. Not bad, Gu Changqing remarked, satisfied after personally experiencing the barrier's effectiveness. What is your intent? Lu Ruyun inquired, her face awash with skepticism. Unable to fathom Gu Changqing's motives. It's my first time using a talisman. I simply wanted to test its efficacy, Gu Changqing replied without a moment's hesitation. Upon hearing this, Lu Ruyun found herself in a state of bemusement, her earlobes subtly tinged with crimson. It turned out that she had once again misinterpreted the situation. Of course, this was not merely due to her heightened sensitivity. After years of navigating the complexities of the business world and encountering all manner of individuals, one must always prepare for the worst to guard against unforeseen circumstances. Had it been someone like Martin Yu, alone with her within a secluded barrier, the outcome would likely have been far more complicated. While she breathed a silent sigh of relief, an inexplicable sense of disappointment lingered in her heart. How could her charm pale in comparison to a mere talisman? Gu Changqing offered an apologetic smile, requesting, could you perhaps draw another for me? Certainly, but in return, you owe me a favor, Lu Ruyun teased, her sparkling eyes playfully relieving the awkward tension within her. Without hesitation, Gu Changqing agreed, that sounds fair. As soon as the words left his lips, Lu Ruyun deftly poured out another drop of the liquid material, channeling her energy through her fingertips. She swiftly crafted an exquisite and enigmatic rune, skillfully imprinting it onto the talisman paper. The entire process flowed seamlessly, akin to a graceful dance. Gu Changqing watched intently as Lu Ruyun inscribed the rune, even discreetly summoning his tiger wasp to commit the scene to memory. This time, he could not afford to waste the opportunity. Lu Ruyun, with her lips gently pursed, handed the newly crafted talisman to Gu Changqing. Though the process seemed effortless, a hint of fatigue was evident in her expression, clearly indicating that inscribing runes demanded great mental exertion. Thank you, Gu Changqing replied with a smile, then glanced curiously at the vial of liquid beside him. Can this liquid also be used to draw other types of runes? Not at all, Lu Ruyun shook her head. Different kinds of runes require distinct materials to be combined, which then create the appropriate liquid. Furthermore, beyond crafting talismans, runes can also be inscribed onto equipment and elixirs, enhancing their capabilities. In fact, when the art of runes is mastered to its pinnacle, one can inscribe them onto the human body to temporarily augment their strength. This knowledge is the culmination of countless generations of diligent study by the formidable predecessors of the Sanyuan continent over millennia. Hearing this, Gu Changqing's eyes sparkled with intrigue, his interest in the wondrous capabilities of runes deepening. Equipping the shadow spider and tiger wasp with rune-enhanced armaments would undoubtedly bolster their combat prowess. Mr. Gu, if you are indeed interested in the art of runes, I have half a vial of this isolating material left. If it does not displease you, you may take it for your research. Lu Ruyun, seeming to discern Gu Changqing's intentions, graciously offered the vial. Such a valuable vial is worth thousands of taels of silver. Please use it sparingly. Is it really that expensive? Upon hearing the price Lu Ruyun quoted, Gu Changqing's pupils dilated in astonishment. He finally grasped the true essence of the saying, the poor in literature, the rich in martial prowess. It was not merely a matter of fervor. The crucial question was whether one had the financial means. After a brief moment of reflection, Gu Changqing glanced at the small vial in his hand, suddenly filled with a sense of experimentation. He poured a drop of the liquid onto his fingertip, the process of Lu Ruyun inscribing runes vividly materializing in his mind. And then he meticulously replicated her actions. A surge of true essence flowed into the liquid, and in an instant, his fingertip deftly began to sketch in the void. However, just as the rune was on the verge of taking shape, a slight fluctuation in Gu Changqing's true essence caused a deficiency in the continuous output. With a soft hiss, the rune that had just formed was instantly reduced to ash. Have you studied runes? Lu Ruyun couldn't help but inquire. No. I merely attempted to mimic your actions to see if it was difficult. Unfortunately, I still failed, Gu Changqing replied with a faint smile, treating it lightly. Yet, upon hearing this, Lu Ruyun was taken aback, her eyes wide with disbelief. It is worth noting that during her initial studies of runes, she had to accumulate a vast amount of theoretical knowledge while continually honing the dexterity of her fingers. Even during her first attempt at inscribing runes, she had failed midway, unable to fully realize the rune. Yet here was Gu Changqing, effortlessly drawing a complete rune on his first try without any guidance. Had it not been for the improper control of his essence, he undoubtedly would have succeeded. This was nothing short of extraordinary. Lu Ruyun took a slow, deep breath, her heart resonating with shock. She regarded Gu Changqing with a peculiar gaze, observing his nonchalant demeanor, seemingly unaware of the magnitude of his own talent. In truth, Gu Changqing remained oblivious to this fact, lacking any sense of pride. To him, until one achieves success, failure is simply failure. Concepts such as talent were merely comforting phrases to motivate others. What he truly understood was his immediate necessity and clear objective, to amass wealth. Without financial means, all aspirations were but mere empty talk. Boss, we have arrived at Jinhai Pavilion, came Meng Jing's voice from outside the carriage. As it gradually came to a stop by the roadside, Manager Lu, I shall not accompany you further, Gu Changqing said, retrieving 8 colorful honey pills from his storage ring and handing them to Lu Ruyun, keeping 2 for himself in case of emergencies. Lu Ruyun enthusiastically invited him. I have reserved a seat for you at tonight's auction. You must attend. Unfortunately, I cannot. The medical clinic has patients awaiting my treatment, Gu Changqing politely declined, fabricating a casual excuse. Having acquired the isolation talismans, it was undoubtedly an opportune moment for executing an assassination. To avoid any unforeseen complications, it was prudent to steer clear of Martin Yu. Your compassion as a healer is commendable, Lu Ruyun remarked appreciatively, smiling at Gu Changqing. Very well. I will hold your seat at the auction, and it matters not if you arrive late. Gu Changqing nodded calmly and watched as she departed. Boss, Manager Lu seems quite fond of you. Don't you find it intriguing? Meng Jing gazed upon the graceful silhouette of Lu Ruyun as she departed, grinning as he remarked, as the saying goes, a woman 3 years older is like a brick of gold, especially one who is both affluent and capable. Gu Changqing, however, paid him no heed and instead instructed, I have matters to attend to. Return first and have Feng Baiyu procure some sound transmission talismans. We shall convene at the medical hall this evening. With that, he dismounted the carriage alone and made his way towards a nearby tavern. Not daring to inquire further due to Gu Changqing's enigmatic demeanor, Meng Jing promptly drove off to fulfill his task. Inside the tavern, Gu Changqing selected a private room on the 3rd floor by the window, frequently glancing towards the entrance of the Jinhai Pavilion. Through the surveillance images relayed by Shadow Spider, he observed that Martin Yu and his entourage were approaching the Jinhai Pavilion. Moments later, they arrived at their destination. However, due to the pavilion's rules, not all of the dozen guards could enter, leaving only Li Chao to accompany Martin Yu inside. Little Spider, take a moment to rest. Gu Changqing subtly cast a glance and then recalled Shadow Spider, replacing it with Tiger Bee for monitoring. Although Shadow Spider was a creature of unusual nature, it was still made of flesh and blood. After a day and night of tracking, its energy had significantly waned. With dusk approaching, it was prudent to allow it to recuperate. As night descended, numerous luxurious carriages had gathered outside the Jinhai Pavilion. Being the largest auction house in Qingzhou City, its clientele comprised the wealthy and influential, most of whom were notable figures. Gu Changqing felt a shift in his thoughts and instantly transitioned to the perspective of Tiger Bee within the auction hall. The expansive venue was lavishly illuminated, with rows of seats arranged in a fan-like structure encircling the central bidding platform. Looking around, one could see that nearly every seat was occupied, creating a vibrant atmosphere. In various corners of the auction hall, numerous enforcers from the Jinhai Pavilion patrolled, instilling a profound sense of security. Indeed, wherever an auction is held, the strength of the organizing party is paramount. Otherwise, there could be instances of reckless bidding without the means to pay, or even attempts to forcibly seize auction items. Thus, without sufficient authority to maintain order, it is challenging to conduct a successful auction. At that moment, Martin Yu appeared to have made prior arrangements. Securing an independent box on the top floor of the auction hall, complete with a window that offered a full view of the bidding activities below. Tiger B stealthily infiltrated the box, lurking in the shadows, awaiting instructions. Li Chao, summon Lu Ruyun to come here, Martin Yu coldly commanded. Inform her that the fellow surnamed Gu is in my box. As he spoke, he poured a potion into one of the wine glasses, gently swirling it. Understood, young master. Li Chao acknowledged, turning to leave the box. Master, the prey is now isolated. Shall we proceed? Tiger B inquired telepathically upon witnessing the situation. Gu Changqing's thoughts raced as he commanded, delay action for now. Seek an opportunity to switch the positions of the wine glasses. The 7-colored honey pills must be leveraged to earn a significant sum during the auction. If a life is lost, the event will surely be abruptly halted. Moreover, Martin Yu was clad in protective armor, making it exceedingly challenging to carry out an assassination in such a brief span of time. Regardless of the outcome, the ensuing commotion would inevitably influence the progress of the auction. Thus, prior to its conclusion, restraint was the only recourse. Upon receiving the directive, the wasp quietly maneuvered to the underside of the table, patiently biding its time. The Lu family, known for their emphasis on reputation, would find that if Lu Ruyun were to lose her virtue to me tonight, she would ultimately have no choice but to marry me, no matter her reluctance. What a cunning plan indeed. Martin Yu sneered, then turned to gaze out the window towards the auction venue below, contemplating which pose would be most impactful. Unbeknownst to him, while he was lost in thought, the 2 glasses of red wine on the table had been discreetly swapped by the wasp. A job well done, Gu Changqing silently praised. Once this fellow drank from the glass laced with the tranquilizer, the opportunity would present itself. Chapter 23. I want a woman, young master. Steward Lu has arrived. As the door swung open, Li Chao entered the private room, accompanied by Lu Ruyun. Were you not saying that Dr. Gu was here? Lu Ruyun surveyed the surroundings, and upon realizing that Gu Changqing was absent, her expression grew noticeably colder. Dr. Gu? Martin Yu raised an eyebrow, scoffing. I thought that lad held some significance. Turns out he is merely a physician. If I discover that he has no connections with the princes, I shall have him thrown into the dungeon. At this, Lu Ruyun frowned slightly, clearly unaware of the prior altercation between Gu Changqing and Martin Yu. Since Dr. Gu is not present, I have matters to attend to. With that, she turned to leave. Wait. Martin Yu swiftly raised 2 glasses of red wine, intercepting Lu Ruyun. On behalf of the Ma family, I would like to extend my congratulations to Miss Lu on the successful hosting of tonight's auction. If you do not partake, it would be a slight to our family. His smile was ambiguous as he presented the glass of wine that did not contain the tranquilizer towards Lu Ruyun. Surely he must be mistaken? Gu Changqing, observing through the wasp's eyes, felt a sudden jolt in his heart. If that were the case, it would indeed be a blunder. Dr. Gu was correct. This man harbored ulterior motives. Lu Ruyun's gaze darkened, and she had already formulated a strategy in her mind. Thanks to Gu Changqing's prior warning, she had secretly consumed the antidote for the tranquilizer before arriving at the private room. Thus, she did not hesitate. Her eyes flickered as she reached out and seized Martin Yu's glass of wine. The glasses were exchanged in a remarkable turn of events. A glimmer of brilliance flashed in Martin Yu's eyes, seemingly aligning perfectly with his intentions. He had long recognized this woman's astuteness. With the slightest ruse, she was easily manipulated. Martin Yu inwardly scoffed, clearly having orchestrated the situation. Thank you, young Master Ma. I wish you continued success. Lu Ruyun raised her glass with a smile in her beautiful eyes. Very well, cheers. Martin Yu watched as Lu Ruyun downed her drink, and without hesitation, he followed suit. Eagerly fixing his gaze upon her, Lu Ruyun, taken aback by his boldness, pondered the implications. If that drink were tainted, how could he dare to consume it? Her own glass seemed unblemished, as she felt no adverse effects. Yet, in that moment, Martin's body trembled slightly, a wave of dizziness overtook him, and he felt an intense heat enveloping him. Why was she unaffected? He looked at Lu Ruyun, astonishment evident in his eyes, only to find her composed and unperturbed. Could it be that my drink was the one laced with poison? Panic gripped Martin as his vision began to blur. He was acutely aware that the Hahuan powder was a notoriously potent aphrodisiac. Even the most virtuous of women could be ensnared, transformed into uncontrollable vixens. Even eunuchs, if exposed to this drug, would succumb to debauchery. Furthermore, if one did not engage in carnal unions soon after ingestion, they would suffer a fatal demise within half an hour, their skin tearing and blood flowing from every orifice. Martin was suddenly overwhelmed with dread, cold sweat pouring down him. He had unwittingly fallen victim to the very concoction he had meticulously prepared. Young master, what ails you? Lu Ruyun questioned, her brow furrowed in confusion. Why would he drink something he knew to be suspicious? Lu Ryun, the more I gaze upon you, the more you ignite a fervent desire within me, Martin stammered, gradually losing his faculties. Under the influence of the drug, he was suddenly overtaken by lust, lunging toward her. Lu Ryun's eyes narrowed, and she swiftly sidestepped, calling out, "Bring me assistance." In an instant, several burly men burst through the door, their imposing presence shielding Lu Ryun. "Miss Lu, if you were to yield to me, I would ensure your every desire is fulfilled," Martin declared, his face flushed as if intoxicated, even beginning to shed his garments. "How troublesome." Li Chao frowned, recognizing the perilous situation. Had the young master unwittingly consumed the Hahuan powder himself? Was he courting his own demise? Realizing the gravity of the situation, Li Chao swiftly hoisted Martin and made a hasty exit from the private room. Self-inflicted calamity, indeed, Gu Changqing mused, a sly smile gracing his lips. His gaze shifted to the entrance of the Jinhai Pavilion, where Li Chao and a group of guards rushed forth, carrying the dazed Martin toward the nearby Yihong courtyard. If a woman was not found for him to unite with within half an hour, the consequences would be dire. "Shadow Spider, Tiger Bee, it's time to make your move," Gu Changqing commanded, his eyes narrowing as he issued orders for the assassination. No sooner had he spoken than two shadows swiftly infiltrated the Yihong courtyard. "I want a woman," Martin shouted, now seemingly deranged, drawing the attention of onlookers. This young man, dressed like a scion of a noble family, was in such a frantic state. You do not comprehend. He has ingested an aphrodisiac, so his impatience is hardly surprising. Yet, such substances are typically employed on women. It seems this fellow has inadvertently fallen victim to his own trap. The spectators, taken aback, exchanged incredulous glances, while some seasoned individuals chuckled knowingly. Fortunately, in a place like the Yihong courtyard, women are in abundance, and soon a courtesan was ushered into the private chamber. "Everyone, keep a close watch. No one is permitted to approach," Li Chao commanded, slamming the door and addressing the guards with a stern voice. Before long, the room was filled with the sounds of delicate gasps. Martin Yu was now entirely consumed by desire, stripped of all clothing, even discarding his protective armor onto the floor. "Zhu, your posture is quite audacious. Shall we spar another day?" Hu Feng remarked, his gaze aflame as he watched the entangled pair upon the bed, suddenly communicating telepathically. "Get lost." The chilling gaze of Ying Zhu remained fixed on Martin Yu, her crimson eyes radiating murderous intent. She retrieved a barrier talisman prepared by Gu Changqing from her spatial inventory and ignited it. As the talisman glimmered, a semi-transparent luminescent barrier swiftly enveloped the entire room. Once Ying Zhu activated the barrier talisman, Hu Feng ceased his banter, instantly entering a state of lethal intent. With a swift flick of his tail, several venomous stingers were launched forth. At that precise moment, the couple on the bed shifted positions, and the courtesan unwittingly became a shield, receiving the stingers squarely in her rear. "Ah!" The courtesan's sultry cries morphed into screams of agony as she fainted on the spot. Delightful. After a bout of indulgence, Martin Yu lay sprawled on the bed, his body convulsing as the effects of the drug began to wane. Unbeknownst to him, a silken thread had stealthily wrapped around his neck, tightening abruptly. Instantly, his throat produced a series of dislocated cracking sounds under the pressure of the thread. Startled awake, Martin Yu desperately tumbled from the bed, rasping hoarsely, "Li Chao, save me." However, the barrier's luminescent shield had already sealed the room, rendering his cries unheard. At that moment, Hu Feng surged forth from the shadows. The glint of his stinger flashed ominously as it aimed directly for his throat. In Chapter 24, The Protective Scales. Confronted with Hu Feng's assault, Martin Yu's pupils dilated in terror. It was too late to evade. Swoosh. In the next instant, the poison needle pierced his throat with precision, the paralyzing toxin swiftly coursing through his veins. "Ugh!" Martin Yu cried out in horror, collapsing heavily to the ground, his body convulsing uncontrollably. Ying Zhu, like a specter, swiftly approached, sinking her venomous fangs into his throat. In that moment, under the relentless assault of both toxins, Martin Yu's body convulsed violently, as if struck by lightning. His throat emitted a series of choking sounds, yet he could not utter a full cry of despair. Just as he was on the brink of losing consciousness, he finally caught sight of the mysterious assailant who had attacked him. His eyes bulged, reflecting the minuscule forms of the shadow spider and the hornet. How could this be? Martin Yu's gaze was filled with terror, and he was soon unable to catch his breath, succumbing to poison on the spot. Ding! Congratulations on slaying a post-natal realm warrior. Rewarded with 50 energy points. Subsequently, the shadow spider waved its sharp claw, severing Martin Yu's middle finger to retrieve his storage ring. The hornet then flew to the foot of the bed, seizing a piece of silver armor. After thoroughly collecting their spoils, they swiftly retreated, darting out through the window. Strangely, there was no sound from within. Outside the door, one of the guards jested, "It seems the young master is quite the quick draw." Something felt amiss. Li Chao's expression darkened as he hurriedly broke through the door. Upon seeing Martin Yu, lifeless from poison, his complexion changed dramatically, and his right hand, gripping the sword, trembled uncontrollably. He quickly rushed to the window, his gaze piercing as he scanned the surroundings. Beneath the night sky, apart from the pedestrians on the street, there was no sign of any suspicious individuals. How infuriating! Veins bulged on Li Chao's forehead, his heart brimming with shock and rage. Despite all precautions, it was unimaginable that they had been outmaneuvered by an assassin at such a critical moment. The young master was dead. The guards who followed him into the room were taken aback, their faces draining of color. They immediately began rummaging through drawers and smashing anything that could conceal a hiding place, nearly demolishing the walls in their frenzy. There was no need for such futile efforts. The assassin responsible for this attempt on the young master was no ordinary foe and would not still be lurking here. Li Chao shook his head, and his peripheral vision inadvertently caught sight of ashes on the ground. He bent down to pick up some remnants, bringing them to his nose for a whiff. He quickly deduced that these were the remnants of a burned talisman. No wonder there had been a sudden silence in the room. The assassin had employed a barrier talisman. Li Chao's expression grew grave as he finally comprehended the situation. He then crouched beside Martin Yu's body for a meticulous examination. To his astonishment, he discovered that the wound on the throat was not inflicted by a sharp weapon, but bore the marks resembling those of an animal's bite. Additionally, Li Chao noted the residual venom from the hornet's stinger lodged in the throat. The hornet's stinger. Li Chao furrowed his brow, his eyes wide with disbelief. He could hardly fathom that the assassin targeting the young master was likely a mutated, venomous insect species. This brought to mind the previous incident when their horses had been ambushed during the pursuit of Meng Jing, all succumbing to poison. The method of attack had been this very stinger, suggesting they had already been marked at that time. Such a meticulously orchestrated assassination could only be executed by top-tier assassins. If he were the prey, escape from death would be nearly impossible. The thought sent a chill down Li Chao's spine. Meanwhile, in the tavern, Gu Changqing looked at the shadow spider and hornet that had returned to his side, rewarding each with a roasted chicken. He then retrieved 2 pieces of loot from the system space. The silver armor, light and thin to the touch, is adorned with meticulously engraved arcane runes. Last night, during an assassination attempt, the shadow spider's assault was thwarted, showcasing the formidable defense of the silver armor. Its protective capabilities undoubtedly reached the level of a spiritual treasure. As Gu Changqing donned the armor, the runes shimmered and began to swiftly constrict, molding themselves closely to his skin, akin to exquisitely tailored undergarments. Clad in his black outer garment, the presence of the defensive armor remained imperceptible. Satisfied, Gu Changqing nodded. For him, it was undoubtedly an additional safeguard for his life. Subsequently, Gu Changqing grasped the golden storage ring, his mental energy swiftly probing within. Upon glimpsing the stored provisions, a look of astonishment washed over his face. It must be said that the Ma family possesses considerable wealth. The heir, Martin Yu, carried nearly 1,000 spirit stones and over 50,000 taels in silver notes. This fortune was a timely boon for Gu Changqing, who had depleted his resources in the creation of monsters and the establishment of an intelligence network. This acquisition would undoubtedly fill the void, allowing his overall strength to elevate to a higher tier. The auction should have commenced. It was the perfect opportunity to observe the bidding price for the rainbow honey pills. Having completed his assassination mission, Gu Changqing felt exceedingly relaxed and was inclined to partake in the lively atmosphere. Should there be suitable materials for editing insectoid creatures, he might procure them as well. With a mere thought, he summoned the tiger wasp and shadow spider into his system space, then proceeded directly to the Golden Sea Pavilion. Upon reaching the entrance, a staff member obstructed his path. Apologies, but the auction has already begun and ordinary guests cannot enter. If you wish to proceed, please present a VIP card from our establishment. The attendant wore a polite smile, yet his eyes betrayed a hint of disdain as he assessed Gu Changqing's modest attire. Inwardly mocking, this fellow probably has never even seen what a VIP card looks like. With a subtle flick of his hand, Gu Changqing produced a pure gold VIP card and handed it forward. The attendant's expression shifted to one of sheer astonishment as he beheld the card, momentarily blinded by its resplendent glow. Esteemed guest, please enter. In an instant, the staff member reverently cradled the VIP card and returned it to Gu Changqing with utmost respect. My surname is Gu. Manager Liu has reserved a spot for me at the auction. Please lead the way. You are Mr. Gu Changqing? Upon receiving a calm nod from Gu Changqing, the attendant momentarily faltered, internally exhaling a sigh of relief. Thankfully, he had refrained from exhibiting any signs of negligence. Otherwise, it would have been disastrous. Dr. Gu from the Destiny Medical Hall. Just then, a light, melodious voice suddenly resonated from behind. Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing turned to glance back. Under the silvery glow of the moonlight stood a young maiden clad in a delicate light-colored gown, her fair cheeks accentuating her breathtaking beauty. It was none other than the esteemed daughter of the Lu family, Lu Shuang'er. Chapter 25. Killing two birds with one stone. Who are you? Gazing at the white-clad maiden before him, Gu Changqing felt a stir of recognition. He immediately identified Lu Shuang'er. However, given the nature of their previous encounter, which had been rather clandestine, he chose to feign ignorance. My aunt is Manager Lu from the Golden Sea Pavilion, Lu Shuang'er said, her eyes sparkling as she gently remarked. So the 7-colored honey pills were concocted by you. It is a pleasure to meet you. Gu Changqing smiled and nodded, his gaze appraising her. Her figure was graceful, and though her delicate features bore some resemblance to Lu Ruyun, the latter exuded a mature and alluring elegance. Lu Shuang'er, on the other hand, radiated an ethereal charm. It was evident that the women of the Lu family were all stunning beauties. My aunt mentioned that the 7-colored honey pills would be auctioned tonight. So I came to take a look, Lu Shuang'er said. Her crimson lips pursed slightly, expressing her hope to acquire the item if the opportunity arose. Gu Changqing replied with a light smile. Given the financial prowess of your Lu family, it should not pose a challenge. Not necessarily, Lu Shuang'er murmured to herself. My personal savings are rather modest. Miss, your reserved auction box is still available. This way, please, a server approached with warmth and respect. If Dr. Gu does not mind, would you accompany me to the box to observe the auction? Lu Shuang'er invited, her beautiful eyes lifting to meet his. The server beside them looked somewhat astonished. In his recollection, the young lady had always been as cold as ice, seldom engaging in conversation with men. Yet now, she not only initiated dialogue with Gu Changqing, but even extended an invitation to share the reserved box, a stark contrast to her usual demeanor. Very well. Gu Changqing did not decline. Having the company of a beauty was indeed a delightful prospect. A flicker of joy sparkled in Lu Shuang'er's eyes as her heart leaped with excitement. Should she fail to win the 7-colored honey pills during the auction, she could privately request a few from Gu Changqing. She could not afford to miss out. Soon, the two arrived at the luxurious box on the top floor of the auction venue. The room was spacious and bright, with an entire wall transformed into floor-to-ceiling glass windows, offering an unobstructed view of the auction hall below. The table was adorned with an array of exquisite pastries and juices, showcasing attentive and meticulous service. The entrance fee for such a box alone would amount to several thousand taels of silver. Gu Changqing could not help but feel a sense of reflection. The offspring of these affluent families were born with silver spoons in their mouths, reveling in the abundant resources provided by their lineage. In contrast, ordinary folk, even after a lifetime of striving, would likely only barely reach the starting point of such privilege. Once seated, Gu Changqing directed his gaze toward the auction stage below. The auction was nearing its conclusion, with various items displayed: swords, martial arts manuals, and spiritual materials, each affixed with a number, clearly indicating they had already found their owners. A brief scan revealed the absence of the 7-colored honey pills. All the items scheduled for tonight's auction have successfully been sold. Congratulations to the winners. Just as Gu Changqing was pondering this, the resonant voice of the middle-aged host suddenly broke the silence. Next, we shall present a final special item. However, this item is not listed in tonight's auction catalog. He paused deliberately, building suspense among the audience. The reason for this impromptu addition is that it was keenly selected by our esteemed manager Lu yesterday. For those fortunate enough to acquire it, its value will undoubtedly exceed expectations. The host's dramatic revelation instantly piqued the curiosity of the majority present. What could possess such worth? Manager Lu's discerning eye is legendary, and as an expert in antiques, her choice must be anything but ordinary. Indeed, anticipation filled the air. As murmurs filled the room, the lights in the hall suddenly dimmed. Following this, a beam of light shot down from the intricately carved ceiling, illuminating a corner of the auction platform. A hushed silence enveloped the crowd as all eyes turned towards the source of the light. Lu Ruyun gracefully made her entrance, walking towards the auction stage, the beam following her every move. Clad in a form-fitting red dress, her figure was accentuated perfectly, exuding an undeniable allure. Lu Ruyun. It was indeed she who was personally overseeing this last-minute auction item. It seemed that in the brief time since they last met, Manager Lu had grown even more youthful. Her skin smooth and delicate, reminiscent of a young maiden. Such a stunning beauty. One could only wonder which young master would be fortunate enough to win her heart. With Lu Ruyun's appearance on stage, a wave of excitement surged through the crowd, particularly among the men, who gazed at her with fervent eyes, brimming with desire. With her at the helm, the bidding for the colorful honey pills was sure to be exhilarating. Gu Changqing nodded to himself, curious about how Lu Ruyun would present the item to the audience. Now on the auction stage, Lu Ruyun held a small hammer, elegantly striking the golden bell. The sound reverberated, gradually quieting the room. The guests must be quite eager to learn what this impromptu item was. With a playful smile, Lu Ruyun remarked, "I shall not keep you in suspense. It is merely a few pills." As her words settled in the air, a waitress approached the auction stage, carrying a silver tray. However, her freckled face and slightly darker skin caused the audience's attention to remain focused on the items upon the tray. Upon closer inspection, they discovered 8 small, 7-colored pills. Their diminutive size, akin to grains of rice, left some guests at a distance struggling to see clearly. What? Just this? So small. Can it even be considered a pill? It's hardly enough to fill a gap between teeth. What a joke. The crowd erupted in expressions of disbelief, laughter echoing throughout the hall. Were it not for Lu Ruyun's esteemed status, they might have left in a huff. Unfazed by the murmurs of skepticism, Lu Ruyun remained composed. When she first encountered the vibrant honey pills, she harbored doubts. Without personal experience, it seemed almost unbelievable. Though diminutive in size, these pills boasted remarkable abilities to detoxify, heal, and enhance beauty, all without a hint of side effects. Lu Ruyun smiled and remarked, "Especially the beautifying effects, which will surely exceed your expectations." Upon hearing this, the gentlemen present scoffed, showing little interest. Yet, the female guests in attendance suddenly became animated, their gazes fixated on Lu Ruyun, sensing her credibility. It was no wonder that despite her age, Manager Lu maintained such youthful skin. Words alone were insufficient. Thus, I shall demonstrate the effects live. After Lu Ruyun's declaration, a guard approached, cradling a transparent crystal box. Gu Changqing's expression sharpened as he noticed a black and white striped venomous snake coiled within. What was the purpose of this? The crowd was momentarily taken aback, then recalled Lu Ruyun's earlier mention of detoxification. Lu Ruyun turned to the pale-faced waitress, gently reassuring her, "Do not be afraid. Nothing will happen." The waitress, suppressing her fear, tremblingly extended her hand toward the crystal box. Suddenly, as her palm ventured inside, the snake lunged and bit her. "Ah!" she screamed, retracting her hand in shock, revealing 2 puncture wounds oozing blood on her wrist, while the surrounding skin rapidly darkened with a purplish hue as the venom spread swiftly. Witnessing this scene, the onlookers gasped in astonishment. No one had anticipated that Lu Ruyun would test the poison on a human rather than an animal. Thus, it became clear to Gu Changqing, who remained composed. Having guessed Lu Ruyun's strategy, after all, how could animal testing truly showcase the beauty-enhancing effects of the vibrant honey pills? This tactic indeed achieved a dual purpose. Chapter 26. It was actually her. Lu Ruyun produced a vibrant honey pill and placed it into the waitress's mouth. The moment the pill touched her tongue, it transformed into a surge of multicolored radiance, coursing through her entire body. Moments later, the waitress's complexion began to regain its rosy hue. While the wounds from the snake bite healed at a visible pace, the toxins dissipating entirely. Even more astonishingly, the freckles that dotted her face seemed to melt away like snow, revealing skin that was rejuvenated, fair, and luminous. Her overall appearance experienced a dramatic enhancement. The crowd erupted in astonishment, especially the female guests, whose eyes sparkled with excitement. Detoxification? Healing? They hardly cared. What truly sent them into a frenzy was the miraculous beautifying effect. A freckled, plump matron could no longer contain herself. She rushed to the auction stage, leaning in closely to scrutinize the waitress's cheek. This small pill yielded results that surpassed even the most effective skincare products. She trembled with excitement, her eyes brimming with delight. Lu Ruyun's lips curled into a subtle smile, unfazed by the crowd's reaction. Although there are healing and detoxifying pills available on the market, few possess the added benefit of beauty enhancement. This undoubtedly presents an irresistible allure for women. How extraordinary! Inside the private room, Lu Shuang'er's eyes sparkled, her heart captivated by the enchanting multicolored honey pills. The efficacy of this pill is evident to all present, requiring no further elaboration from me. Seizing the moment, Lu Ruyun promptly announced, "The auction commences now. The starting price for 7 pills is 10,000 taels of silver." As her words fell, the atmosphere erupted in excitement. This price is remarkably low. Gu Changqing, however, wore a look of disbelief, thinking he had misheard. Such a price barely covers the cost. Yet, the subsequent bids filled his heart with sunshine. 15,000, 30,000, 50,000. The bidding escalated rapidly, surpassing 50,000 in the blink of an eye. Even the men joined the fray, eager to acquire them for their wives. However, the most fervent bidders were undoubtedly the female guests. Some even disregarding their image to stand and shout, "Continue, don't stop." Gu Changqing was swept up in the fervor, the bidding ringing in his ears like celestial music. Beside him, Lu Ruyun remained composed, refraining from placing any bids, as if awaiting something. 60,000, 65,000, 68,000, with prices soaring. The excitement showed no signs of abating. The competition remained fierce. Yet, those with limited finances soon found themselves outmatched. As the bidding approached the 100,000 mark, the rhythm within the room seemed to falter, leaving only scattered bids. At last, a plump wealthy woman called out, 100,000, and the bidding ceased. Gu Changqing, observing the dwindling momentum, felt a sense of relief. This price undoubtedly guaranteed a profit. The quest for beauty would ultimately depend on who possessed greater financial strength. The plump wealthy woman beamed with satisfaction, rising to claim the multicolored honey pills. 150,000. Just as everyone thought the matter was settled, a cool, feminine voice suddenly resonated. The wealthy woman's movements froze as she turned toward the sound. However, the glass walls of the private room were one-way mirrors, obscuring the identity of the speaker. It was her. Gu Changqing turned to glance at Lu Shuang'er beside him, unable to suppress his astonishment. A single bid had escalated from 100,000 to 150,000. Earlier, she had claimed her private funds were limited. Was this what she deemed not much? Incremental bidding was too tedious. A bold leap was far more effective. Lu Shuang'er smiled lightly. This is my bottom line. I cannot go any higher. Upon hearing this, Gu Changqing found himself secretly amused, hoping for her to bid even more aggressively. 150,000 for the first time. Is there anyone willing to bid higher? Lu Riyun's voice momentarily paused, and seeing no one bidding, she continued in accordance with the rules. 150,000, second call. 150,000. Third call sold. As the gavel struck down, Lu Riyun cast a peculiar glance towards the private box, seemingly having recognized Lu Shuang'er's voice. Congratulations to the esteemed guest of Box 08 for successfully bidding on 7 colorful honey pills. Please engage in private transactions with me. With these words, the auction for the evening came to a splendid conclusion. Subsequently, Lu Riyun personally brought the colorful honey pills to the box. Upon seeing Gu Changqing present, she could not help but feel a twinge of surprise. Auntie, Lu Shuang'er smiled mischievously, winking at Lu Riyun. I had a feeling it was you. Upon entering the room, Lu Riyun shot a playful glare at Lu Shuang'er. Auntie truly has discerning eyes. Nothing escapes your notice. Lu Shuang'er affectionately linked her arm with Lu Riyun's, softly pouting. Could I perhaps have an extension on the payment? Enough of that, Lu Riyun chided with a smile. While I was trying my best to stir excitement in the auction house, you went ahead and bid on your own items. Had I known, I could have arranged for Mr. Gu to sell it to you privately. Lu Shuang'er explained. As you know, I will soon be heading to the 7 Xian Martial Academy, and I intended to procure some for my senior sisters. Although Lu Riyun feigned annoyance, she refrained from further comment and turned her gaze towards Gu Changqing. Mr. Gu, according to our shop's regulations, after deducting a 20% commission, you are left with 120,000. Lu Riyun produced a stack of gold notes. This is your due payment. Thank you, Gu Changqing replied calmly, accepting the notes. The 8 colorful honey pills he provided cost merely 200 energy points, equivalent to 20,000 silver. Thus, his profit soared to a staggering 100,000. Mr. Gu, should there be more colorful honey pills in the future, you are most welcome to return to Jinhai Pavilion, Lu Riyun warmly invited. As a merchant, she understood the paramount importance of profit. Within a brief span of time, Jinhai Pavilion had garnered a 2,000 commission, and she was keen to seize the opportunity. Moreover, given the fervent bidding atmosphere of the evening, those wealthy ladies who missed out would undoubtedly come prepared with ample funds next time. Crafting colorful honey pills is no simple task. Such considerations would be made later. Gu Changqing shook his head, unwilling to commit at that moment. After all, the required pollen came from spiritual plants, which were not easily obtainable. The garden of the Lu family's ancestral home had already been harvested by the tiger bees the previous night, and if visited again, those spiritual plants would surely wither and die. Yet, this was merely a secondary concern. Gu Changqing also harbored personal ambitions. The Jinhai Pavilion auction was held only every 10 to 15 days. Despite the significant value generated, the efficiency was too slow. Thus, he deemed it more prudent to sell at his own clinic, ensuring a steady stream of income. Manager Gu, young Master Ma, was just assassinated at the Yihong courtyard. A burly man hurriedly entered to report. Upon hearing the news, Lu Riyun's expression changed drastically. Is the information accurate? Absolutely. The guards of the Ma family have already rushed to the government office to exert pressure, seemingly intent on conducting a thorough investigation of the assassin organization lurking within the city. Listening to the robust man's account, Gu Changqing's eyes flickered with a hint of gravity. This was certainly not favorable news for him. Chapter 27. The Call of the Swarm Ant. Could the target of the assassination be Martin Yu? Lu Shuang'er spoke with a hint of surprise. Yes, indeed it is him. Lu Riyun furrowed her brow. His father is a high-ranking official, and he would undoubtedly not let this matter rest. The city of Changge is likely to experience some unrest in the days to come. Lu Ruyun felt a sense of apprehension regarding this. After all, strictly speaking, Martin Yu's misfortune stemmed from her, leading him to the Yihong courtyard to vent, which ultimately resulted in his assassination. If Count Ma were to investigate, he might harbor resentment towards the Lu family, given that old fox's vengeful nature. Resolving this matter would not be so simple. Mr. Gu, I have other matters to attend to. We shall collaborate another day when the opportunity arises. Lu Ruyun said with a polite smile, no longer inclined to entertain Gu Changqing. Gu Changqing nodded nonchalantly, seizing the opportunity to take his leave. Now that he was aware of the impending actions from the authorities, he needed to make thorough preparations in advance. Lu Ruyun gazed at Gu Changqing's retreating figure and suddenly inquired, Schwanger, when did you arrive with Dr. Gu? Not long ago. Just in time for the impromptu filming of the 7-colored honey pill, Lu Schwanger replied, casting a puzzled glance at her. Upon hearing this, Lu Ruyun's heart sank. She remembered that earlier at the entrance of the Lu family ancestral home, Gu Changqing had had a brief altercation with Martin Yu, and afterward, he brought her to Jinhai Pavilion, conveniently avoiding entering the venue. Now he unexpectedly appeared at the auction, followed by the news of Martin Yu's demise. The timing of these events struck her as rather peculiar. It was merely a verbal dispute. Surely it would not escalate to murder. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Lu Ruyun shook her head inwardly, dismissing this absurd notion. One must consider that Martin Yu was surrounded by over a dozen elite guards, including Li Chao, a master of innate power, who was never far from him. Unless it were a top-tier assassin, who could stealthily take his life. How could a physician dedicated to saving lives possibly be an assassin? Aunt, you have been gazing in the direction of Dr. Gu's departure, Lu Schwanger teased softly. Blinking. Could it be that you have feelings for him? Nonsense. Lu Ruyun shot her a look, then pondered momentarily. I just feel that he is different from others. He is difficult to see through. Lu Schwanger was slightly taken aback. Aunt, having navigated the business world for so many years, is there truly someone you cannot decipher? There are always individuals beyond others, realms beyond realms. Lu Ruyun replied with a gentle smile. Do you believe that someone capable of concocting such wondrous elixirs as the 7-colored honey pill could be an ordinary physician? I am merely intrigued by his manner of conducting affairs. Lu Schwanger, with her captivating gaze, proposed, if that is the case. Let us visit the Destiny Medical Pavilion another day. Perhaps we shall uncover something intriguing. Lu Ruyun's expression shifted slightly, seemingly touched by her words. Meanwhile, Gu Changqing had already exited the Golden Sea Pavilion, meandering through the quaint, antique streets. Upon passing the Yihong courtyard, he noticed that the establishment had been sealed off, with several officers standing guard outside. The deceased was said to be the legitimate son of the Ma family from the capital. What a disgrace. For a noble count's son to perish in such a place of indulgence, bringing shame to the Ma family. Even more alarming was the prowess of the assassin, who had managed to stealthily execute the deed right under the noses of numerous Ma family guards. Indeed, not only had they failed to apprehend the culprit, but even the shadow of the assassin remained elusive. The gathered crowd murmured in hushed tones, all expressing their astonishment when the mysterious assassin was mentioned. Gu Changqing paused for a moment, and upon gleaning no useful information, chose to depart. In his view, regardless of the circumstances, the authorities would inevitably take measures to provide the Ma family with an explanation. Thus, it was certain that a city-wide investigation would ensue. However, in Changge City, there existed only the Destiny Medical Pavilion as a remaining stronghold for underground assassins. Should any whispers escape from the black market intermediaries, it would undoubtedly lead to inquiries. While there were various methods of self-preservation, in this ruthless world, Gu Changqing firmly believed that the strength of one's fist ultimately dictated survival. Then, with a slight stir of his spirit, he converted all the spirit stones in his storage ring into energy. Ding, conversion successful. Congratulations. Host has acquired 1,070 points of energy, accumulating to 1,600. System, open the enhancement panel. As the thought settled, a luminous panel suddenly materialized before him. Enhancement template has been activated for the host. Please select a pet for upgrade enhancement. Both the Shadow Spider and the Tiger Bee were of intermediate rank. Upgrading them to advanced rank would require 1,000 points of energy each. Gu Changqing pondered briefly before promptly selecting the Tiger Bee as his target for enhancement. The last time the Tiger Bee underwent an upgrade, the skill for crafting rainbow honey balls had yielded him substantial profits. This time, he wondered what unexpected surprises awaited him. Upon completing the operation, the system's mechanical voice resonated consecutively. Ding, upgrade successful. Congratulations, your Tiger Bee has achieved high-level enhancement, significantly boosting its combat power. New skill unlocked, Swarm Summon. Power assessment, early stage of the innate realm. To upgrade to the extraordinary rank, 10,000 points of energy are required. The demand had increased tenfold. Upon seeing the upgrade requirement, Gu Changqing felt an immense pressure. As time progressed, the cost would undoubtedly escalate to a substantial sum. He then shifted his gaze downwards to the skill section that had been unlocked on the panel. Swarm Summon. Instantly summon 100B soldiers to assist in combat. Duration of 30 minutes. Gu Changqing's eyes brightened, filled with curiosity. Tiger Bee, come forth and showcase your prowess. At the moment the command was issued, the tiger wasp suddenly surged forth, soaring into the sky. Only when it had distanced itself from the neighborhood did it unleash its skill, Bee Swarm Summon. Instantly, a tumultuous tide of black mist rapidly spread from the tiger wasp. Buzzing, swarms of wasp soldiers erupted from the dark fog, forming a dense cloud. Subsequently, the data information of the hundreds of wasp soldiers flashed upon the panel. Their combat power was modest, merely half that of the tiger wasp. In terms of skills, they had only inherited the tiger wasp's venomous sting critical hit. Nevertheless, their sheer numbers constituted a formidable hornet legion, not to be underestimated. Moreover, Gu Changqing was astonished to discover that he shared a sensory connection with this swarm of wasp soldiers. Whoosh! In the night sky, the swarm rapidly dispersed, each circling above the city. No matter which part of the neighborhood was within the sight of the wasp soldiers, it was projected in real time into Gu Changqing's mind. As the shared perception activated, the images in his mind flooded in, resembling a vast monitoring room, overseeing all movements within the city. Impressive, Gu Changqing marveled inwardly. The skill of summoning the swarm, irrespective of its combat potential, would undeniably enhance his ability to track prey in the future, like adding wings to a tiger. Chapter 28. The scapegoat. Through the comprehensive vision provided by the swarm, Gu Changqing discerned movements near the government office. He focused his mind and discreetly commanded one of the wasp soldiers to monitor the situation. Under the cloak of night, Captain Lee emerged with a group of constables, swiftly navigating through various streets, apprehending any suspicious individuals on the spot. Captain, is it all right to randomly arrest people like this? A young constable couldn't help but inquire. They don't seem like assassins by any means. Fool. Captain Lee shot him a glare, admonishing, it doesn't matter whether they look like it or not. We need to bring back some local ruffians at the very least, to provide an explanation. Do you truly believe you can catch an assassin? Upon hearing this, the young constable's expression faltered, and he quickly shook his head. No, I can't. Then that's settled, Captain Lee scoffed. Expecting us to catch assassins is akin to seeking death. Sometimes, one must be pragmatic. Moreover, these ruffians rarely engage in honorable deeds, under intense interrogation. We can easily fabricate a scapegoat to appease the higher-ups. The young constable suddenly grasped the wisdom in this, giving Captain Lee a thumbs up. Truly, experience speaks volumes. Subsequently, Captain Lee, with his constables in tow, marched aggressively toward the impoverished district in the north of the city. The inhabitants here were predominantly nameless lower-class individuals, undoubtedly the perfect candidates for scapegoats. At that moment, a carriage rolled through the alley, which was awash with sewage, approaching them. The driver, masked and robust, was none other than Meng Jing. Just when he was troubled by the lack of a suitable scapegoat, this individual appeared to be the perfect fit. Lee, the head constable, cast a sweeping gaze, and, upon noticing Meng Jing's enigmatic attire, couldn't help but snicker maliciously. Stop him. A dozen officers, understanding the command, swiftly advanced to halt the carriage. Gentlemen, please go ahead, Meng Jing replied, a hint of confusion in his eyes as he pulled the carriage aside, clearing the path. We're not passing through. We intend to apprehend you. Lee approached with an icy smirk. You'd best surrender willingly, lest you invite unnecessary suffering. Meng Jing furrowed his brow. What crime have I committed? Enough with the nonsense. Come with us to the magistrate's office, and you'll find out. Lee drew his long blade with a swift motion, bellowing, should you dare resist, I shall show no mercy. The officers brandished their weapons menacingly, closing in on him. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Meng Jing understood that something was amiss. Following Gu Changqing's instructions, he had sent Fang Baiyu to procure some sound transmission talismans from the black market, intending to deliver them to the Tianming Medical Hall, only to find himself in such dire straits. Meng Jing, they clearly wish to use you as a scapegoat. At that moment, a deep voice emerged from the carriage, belonging to Fang Baiyu. If they capture you, it will be disastrous. Charge through. Damn it. So that's it, Meng Jing thought resolutely, tightening the reins before emitting a sharp whistle. Suddenly, the steed beneath him reared up, its powerful hooves striking violently, toppling two officers who had drawn too close. And it then surged forward, attempting to break through the throng. Seeking death, Lee's eyes narrowed as he dashed forward. Meanwhile, his blade, infused with yuan energy, glimmered ominously as he unleashed a fierce slice directed at the horse. Just as calamity seemed imminent, A hidden wasp soldier swiftly unleashed a venomous stinger, accurately piercing Li's hand. Ah! He screamed in agony, the blade slipping from his grasp as his right arm swelled and darkened visibly. Boss, what is wrong? The sudden turn of events left the officers bewildered. Before they could react, a deafening and relentless buzzing filled the air above. Instinctively, they looked up, their pupils dilating in shock. A vast swarm of hornets descended like a dark cloud, their tails twitching as they simultaneously unleashed a barrage of venomous stings. In an instant, countless tiny stingers rained down like arrows. The officers, in a panic, swung their blades to defend themselves, yet many were struck, the searing pain engulfing them entirely. Ah! A chorus of anguished screams echoed around them. Such ferocious wasps. Both Meng Jing and Fang Baiyu were taken aback. Yet, to their relief, they noticed that these venomous creatures seemed to be refraining from attacking them, as if controlled by an unseen hand. Where on earth did this horde of hornets come from? Li, the head constable, withdrew the poisonous stinger from the back of his hand and was instantly engulfed in dizziness, faced with a swarm of venomous bees. The officers were thrown into a state of utter chaos. Ah! Li cried out in pain, too terrified to continue pursuing any scapegoat. He scrambled away in a frantic flight. As their leader fled, the officers dispersed in sheer panic. Retreat. At that moment, far in the eastern district of the city, Gu Changqing issued a quiet command. The bee soldiers hovering above the carriage swiftly retreated like a whirlwind. Baiyu, do you think these poisonous bees are here to rescue us? Meng Jing asked, gazing incredulously at the receding swarm. Isn't it obvious? Given that we emerged unscathed from that attack, they must be protecting us, Baiyu replied, his gaze sharpening. Moreover, the person who can command such a multitude of hornets must be a master beast tamer. We have indeed stumbled upon a stroke of fortune, encountering a chivalrous martial arts expert. Meng Jing chuckled awkwardly. If we get the chance, we must express our gratitude in person. Huh. Those skilled individuals are not so easily met. We must strive to enhance our cultivation. Perhaps then, we may have a chance, Baiyu responded dismissively. Our current objective is to assist the boss in expanding the assassin organization. Once we have sufficient funds, we can purchase spiritual materials for cultivation. Meng Jing nodded earnestly, sharing the same fervent passion for martial arts. Given the events that transpired tonight in the slums, we can no longer stay here. Baiyu mused before playfully kicking Meng Jing's backside. What are you dawdling for? Hurry to the Destiny Medical Hall and find the boss. You little rascal. Don't you dare think of me as your passenger. Kick me again, and I'll toss you off the carriage. Meng Jing shot a furious glare at Baiyu before grasping the reins and hastening the carriage forward. Unbeknownst to them, the tiger bees that had been lurking in the shadows darted out, speeding towards Gu Changqing's location. Once Gu confirmed that Meng Jing and his companions were safe, he severed their shared vision, contemplating his next move. As the Destiny assassins expanded and strengthened, these two were pivotal, and nothing must go awry. Once the current matters were settled, it would be prudent to enhance their cultivation abilities. Gu Changqing pondered briefly, intending to gather some martial arts resources to nurture the two. Although they fortuitously encountered him and received clandestine assistance in escaping their crisis, what would happen next? Therefore, bolstering their strength was of paramount importance. Moreover, both Meng Jing and Baiyu possessed exceptional martial talent, even from their humble beginnings in the slums. They could reach the pinnacle of the Qi-gathering realm with limited resources. If provided with ample cultivation resources, their progress would be meteoric. Chapter 29, The Shadow's Passage. Gather, Gu Changqing commanded. Instantly, the hundreds of bee soldiers circling in the night sky transformed into black mist with a series of soft sounds, vanishing into thin air. Soon after, the tiger wasp had already soared above the district where he stood, suddenly flapping its wings and diving down. Its speed was astonishing, and in the blink of an eye, it landed firmly on Gu Changqing's shoulder. At that moment, it exhibited an advanced state of enhancement in speed, strength, and defense. Its 6 legs resembled claws forged from steel, while its 2 pairs of wings were as hard as iron, their edges shimmering with a sharp, cold glint. It was not difficult to imagine that if struck by those iron wings, the sharpness would rival that of a dagger, capable of slicing through flesh in an instant. Though small, if they were to slash at a person's eyes or throat, the resulting damage would undoubtedly be immense. With another level of enhancement, the tiger wasp would likely be able to sweep through human martial artists of the innate realm. Gu Changqing pondered quietly, then raised his gaze to the starry night sky, his eyes reflecting a hint of yearning. He was acutely aware of his current standing. Despite the vast expanse of the outside world and its abundant resources, he must continue to linger in this modest territory until he had fully developed. Master, you are biased. I too wish to enhance. The shadow spider's mournful voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Fear not, little spider. In times of danger, I shall protect you. The tiger wasp responded with a hint of arrogance. Who needs your protection? I want the master. The shadow spider's tone was laced with disdain. Had it not been for the tiger wasp's superior strength, it would have gladly spun a web in retaliation. Gu Changqing chuckled silently at the banter between his two pets. With 600 energy points remaining, he planned to gather a total of 1,000 before granting further enhancement. Gu Changqing nodded with a smile, and then hired a carriage at the roadside, heading towards Tianbao Pavilion. He currently possessed around 170,000 in funds, more than sufficient to complete the shadow spider's advanced enhancement. Esteemed guest, you have finally arrived. Upon entering Tianbao Pavilion, the shopkeeper immediately recognized Gu Changqing and greeted him with great enthusiasm. Young master, are you here to sell those 7-colored pills? The shopkeeper rubbed his hands together, his eyes narrowing with delight. Whatever quantity you wish to sell, I shall buy without hesitation. Having missed the opportunity last time, he was still haunted by it. Thus, he could not afford to let this chance slip away. This time, I am not selling pills. I wish to purchase some inferior spiritual stones. Approximately 500 pieces. Upon hearing this quantity, the shopkeeper's previously disappointed mood brightened considerably, feeling as if he had stumbled upon a hidden opportunity. Very well, that will suffice. He hurriedly grabbed a burlap sack and filled it to the brim. By the way, our shop has just acquired pollen from the cold spirit flower today. Would you be interested? Remembering Gu Changqing's previous purchases of such materials, he quickly seized the opportunity to promote it. This is the last batch of the late autumn harvest, weighing a full 3 pounds. As he spoke, the shopkeeper retrieved an iron box from beneath the counter. Upon opening it, the crystalline pollen glimmered before their eyes, accompanied by a refreshing fragrance that filled the air. Gu Changqing's expression shifted. This pollen was sufficient to concoct 6 batches of 7-colored honey pills, totaling 30 pieces. Even in the absence of assassination assignments, a steady flow of funds can be maintained for a period, should you desire the entirety. Along with the price of the spirit stones, the shopkeeper, his chubby fingers deftly tapping on the abacus, beamed as he declared, I shall round it off for you, totaling 160,000 silver coins. Gu Changqing did not haggle, paying the full amount. Yet, upon completing the transaction, a bitter smile crept upon his lips. The once ample assets had swiftly transformed into a state of financial strain. System, select Shadow Spider for enhancement. Exiting Tianbao Workshop, Gu Changqing focused his mind and abruptly activated the upgrade panel. Subsequently, he converted all the acquired spirit stones into energy points. Beep, upgrade successful. Congratulations. Your Shadow Spider has completed a high-level enhancement, significantly boosting its combat power. Unlocked high-level skill, Shadow Traversal. Power assessment, early stage of innate realm. To upgrade to the extraordinary tier, 10,000 energy points are required. As the information on the panel shifted dramatically, a brand new pet profile emerged. The form of the Shadow Spider had undergone a transformation, the previously pitch-black exoskeleton now adorned with silver web-like patterns. Its 8 legs gleamed with a chilling metallic luster, and the barbed claws at the ends of its limbs were as sharp as needles. Yet, Gu Changqing's attention was wholly captivated by the new skill of the Shadow Spider. By retrieving information, he discovered that it was a dark-type spatial displacement ability, embodying the traits of stealth, ambush, and evasion. However, it necessitated contact with or proximity to shadowed areas to initiate the traversal, and one must leap between shadows within the field of vision. With a limit of 100 meters. Was this skill not akin to instantaneous spatial teleportation? Gu Changqing's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Although it lacked the freedom of spontaneous teleportation, its capabilities were undeniably impressive. Master, the excited voice of the Shadow Spider resonated within his consciousness. I have learned Shadow Traversal. No sooner had it spoken than the Shadow Spider appeared beneath Gu Changqing's feet, using the shadow of his body as a point of traversal, and in the next moment, it materialized within the shadow of a nearby wall. Impressive. Gu Changqing silently praised, filled with envy. Were he to possess such a skill of shadow traversal, it would undoubtedly serve as an additional safeguard for his life. Regrettably, the system's shared perception did not grant him access to the abilities of the Shadow Spider. After a brief moment of reflection, Gu Changqing swiftly adjusted his mindset. After all, the enhancement of the Shadow Spider's strength equated to an overall increase in the combat capability of his entire team. He then checked his energy points balance. 100 points. This was more than sufficient for the refinement of 6 batches of rainbow honey pills. Immediately, Gu Changqing focused his mind and directed all the pollen into the system space for processing. Beep, all rainbow honey pills have been successfully produced. Energy points, 600. Congratulations. Host, you have obtained 30 rainbow honey pills. Gu Changqing retrieved a jade box from his storage ring, carefully placing 30 coins within. Although the amount was modest, reselling them would undoubtedly yield a considerable profit. With matters settled, it was time to return. However, as Gu surveyed his surroundings, he noticed that the carriage which had previously awaited him on the roadside had vanished. The distance to the Destiny Medical Pavilion spanned several dozen kilometers, and he would have to journey back on foot. Master, I can assist you with shadow traversal. Would you care to give it a try? The voice of the shadow spider echoed in his mind, igniting a spark of excitement in Gu's eyes. Such a method was indeed intriguing. Suppressing his exhilaration, he cautiously inquired, "Are there any side effects?" "Fear not, Master. It should be safe," the shadow spider assured him. Bolstered by this affirmation, Gu promptly commanded, "Then let us commence." In an instant, a nearly transparent thread of silk shot forth, swiftly enveloping his form. "Master, hold tight to my thread," the shadow spider instructed. As soon as the words left its mouth, it unleashed the skill of shadow traversal. With a whoosh, Gu was engulfed in darkness, only to be illuminated once more within a mere blink of an eye. To his astonishment, although he remained standing, he had already materialized in the shadows of a wall several dozen meters away. Success! Gu's heart swelled with elation. This was an exceptional skill for stealth. "How does it feel, Master?" The concerned voice of the shadow spider resonated within his mind. Gu swiftly assessed his body and found no anomalies. "No issues. Continue," he replied. And without delay, the shadow spider whisked him away, vanishing from his original location. Thus, the duo swiftly navigated the myriad shadows throughout the streets. Gu felt as though a peculiar force of darkness was guiding him, propelling him along the veins of shadow. Every cell in his being seemed to merge with the darkness, hastening their passage. In a fleeting moment, Gu felt as though he had grasped something profound, only for it to slip away before he could fully comprehend its intricacies. Resolving to embrace the experience, he closed his eyes and savored the extraordinary sensations of traversing the dark expanse. Darkness, he realized, was not mere void, but rather a fluid network. Immersed in this realization, Gu gradually cultivated an understanding as his insights deepened. With each traversal, he distinctly perceived his body being swallowed by darkness instantaneously. Upon release, he completed the journey. However, this was not a mere spatial leap. It was a resonance with the shadow's darkness, culminating in a complete fusion with the abyss. A jolt coursed through Gu's heart as he vaguely touched upon a certain profound realm. In martial cultivation, such realms of perception transcend pure physical strength. Should a warrior grasp a particular essence, they could forge a unique martial art, unleashing power that far exceeds that of their peers. Yet at this moment, Gu had merely grazed the threshold, yet to truly step across. Upon realizing this, he immediately commanded the shadow spider to accelerate its traversing speed without pause. Although the shadow spider harbored doubts, it complied with the order and surged forward. In an instant, phantoms darted through the streets like lightning. Every shadowed area transformed into a launching pad for the shadow spider. The extreme velocity generated a powerful gust of air that swept through the surroundings. Oddly enough, there seemed to be an eerie wind blowing tonight. Indeed, the currents appeared utterly chaotic. Passers-by on the street wore expressions of astonishment, their gazes darting around in disbelief. At that moment, Gu Changge was entirely engulfed in darkness. Apart from the thread of spider silk that wrapped around him, he felt utterly isolated from the outside world. This time, he no longer passively accepted the traversal. Instead, he actively expanded his perception and even attempted to guide the shadow spider's path. "The master seems to be influencing my shadow traversing," the shadow spider thought, astonished to discover that Gu Changge's will could subtly alter its trajectory. Rather than resisting, the shadow spider harmoniously cooperated. As Gu Changge took the lead, the darkness before him transformed from a pure abyss into a network of intricate veins pulsating with energy, akin to a web of blood vessels. Is this the trajectory of shadows? Gu Changge felt a surge of shock as he endeavored to connect with these threads through his consciousness. In that moment, a profound realization exploded within his mind. Ding! Host detected comprehending the essence of darkness. Current comprehension progress. 5:10:15. Just then, the mechanical voice of the system echoed in his mind. However, when the comprehension reached 20, the dark space suddenly collapsed. With a soft pop, the shadow spider's energy was depleted, and the shadow traversing was abruptly interrupted. Gu Changge's form jolted as he abruptly emerged from the realm of darkness, his consciousness returning to reality. Though it was somewhat regrettable, he had at least crossed the threshold. He took a deep breath, suppressing his excitement. "Master, my energy has been exhausted," the shadow spider communicated wearily, resting at Gu Changge's feet with an apologetic tone. The recent high-intensity traversal had evidently drained much of its energy. "No matter, this time, I shall take you," Gu Changge thought, guiding the true essence within him. Attempting to emulate the shadow spider's shadow traversing and resonate with the surrounding darkness, his body trembled slightly, and the shadow beneath his feet twisted eerily as if drawn by an unseen force. Gu Changqing sensed the pulsation within the essence of darkness, then stepped forward, his form gradually merging into the shadows. Soon, his steps quickened, and he transformed into a series of black phantoms, swiftly gliding through the shadows of the street. Though this method of movement pales in comparison to the shadow spider's art of shadow traversal, it embodies a unique interpretation of shadow steps. Inspired by the profound essence of the dark, the path of martial cultivation is indeed unfathomable. Gu Changqing's heart remained largely unperturbed. He understood that he had merely grazed the threshold, grasping only a fragment of the dark essence. Mastering the darkness would not be so effortlessly attained. After all, the system's primary function revolves around the creation of insectoid monsters, and as long as the energy reserves are ample, one can continuously advance and enhance. However, his personal journey of cultivation must be navigated through his own exploration. Only in this manner can he extend his lifespan and perhaps attain the coveted elixir of immortality. Gu Changqing had no desire to become a frail old man, his vitality waning, while the killer organization flourished. Master, if you strive to accumulate wealth, perhaps you could subsequently enhance my capabilities, and I might just produce a longevity elixir, the tiger wasp boasted, seemingly attuned to Gu Changqing's thoughts. Do not be swayed by its flattery. It is I who can fortify you and ensure your safety at all times, retorted the shadow spider, evidently having developed a rivalry with the tiger wasp. Now, that assertion is flawed. I can protect our master as well, and even extend my protection to you. The tiger wasp playfully bantered back, boasting of its prowess. You have yet to witness my transformation into a humanoid monster, where my strength is truly formidable. If you doubt me, master, allow me to demonstrate, it added, buzzing around Gu Changqing in eager anticipation. Had it not been for the absence of a command from its master, the tiger wasp would have eagerly transformed to showcase its abilities. Enough of your prattle. Your existence must remain concealed for the time being, Gu Changqing chided with a smile, promptly relegating the creature back into the system space. To prevent further mischief, he imposed restrictions within the system space, temporarily suppressing the tiger wasp. Master, when do you intend to create the third monster? Inquired the shadow spider, piquing Gu Changqing's interest. Presently, the intelligence network of the killer organization had been entrusted entirely to Feng Baiyu, who would also introduce an agent, Zhao Rong. Once the framework was established, the most pressing need for the organization would be assassins. Contemplating this, Gu Changqing deemed it essential to assemble a monster hunting brigade. However, the question loomed, which type of insectoid should he create for the third monster?